There we
Oh,
go.
there she is.
There it goes. Okay.
Yay.
Great. Now I'm gonna ask people to do their best not to leave and come back as much as possible, because it does makes it so I have to rearrange everybody because I arrange people according to like political. I'm gonna ask people to do that as little as physically possible. The opposite of what's currently. I appreciate that. And counterpoints. Being muted is wonderful. I cannot hear you. No. Wonderful. I've had you on how many shows and still technologically competent. Okay, we're gonna go into this now. So this is the, I think, 30th recorded episode of the EDP Roundtable that will be on YouTube. We're going to cover a few topics, including Trump being permanently banned from Facebook, India, and of course hot tub streams. All the intellectual topics today. So let me go off a few of the rules. Nothing TOS. You do anything from TOS, you're gonna get clapped. There are a few banned words due to the fact that when these words are said, all that does is the show. It deviates the show, and I mean this mostly. You can't use the words like bitch, cunt, stuff of that variety. Stuff that attacks usually character traits is usually how the rule goes. Like unchangeable character trait. Like if somebody came up to me and said, "Dylan, you," something like that is gonna be banned on the show. You do not talk over me when I am talking. When I am talking, I'm simply trying to moderate, and I am also pretty sick. Appreciate if people did their best to make my job easy today. And I think that's everything, except everybody knows how the hand raising system works here, I assume.
Can you just go over it?
Okay, so if nobody, if you are not able to get your way into a conversation, simply raise your hand, and I will write your name down. And I will make sure eventually the topic gets over to you. But when you raise your hand, that doesn't mean you're next in line automatically. Conversation is moving. I'll just make sure that eventually you get some time to talk. There'll also be opening and ending statements for every segment. Everybody understand the rules? Okay, is my volume too low? Is that the problem?
No, sir.
Okay.
I'm Dylan. I can't really raise my hand, due to some physical capabilities, but I can react in like a confused emoji or something, and then you'll know to put me down.
Sure.
Is that
One
okay?
second.
You can raise your hand in the whereby here, I think.
And Eris, I don't. Your mouse isn't moving in the reg.
Yeah, I need to figure. I'm trying to use different software, and it's kind of faulty right now. I apologize.
This is why YouTubers.
No, god damn it.
Yeah,
I'm
I
sorry.
mean,
The V stands for very difficult, I think.
So are
Like-
we using
Very
the
challenged.
whereby for the audio?
yeah, we're
I
using
will
whereby
speak
for
up.
the audio because Discord's breaking currently on all servers.
Eris,
Oh.
the annoying orange solved all of these problems with VTubers 10 years ago.
Okay.
Listen,
So-
I'm not here for it. I'm standing up for the cartoons.
Okay.
Cartoon
I don't
rights.
care about cartoon rights. We're not having that. Some SJW bullshit on today's show. So let's go into the first topic. The first topic is going to be Trump being permanently banned from Facebook. Facebook had like a little commission. You know, they had a little ruling. They had a little like council to discover how this is going to go. And it came out discovering, saying that, hey, Trump's going to be permanently banned. We're not going to change our ruling. He will not be allowed back on the platform. So the question simply is, should it be a permanent ban, or should Facebook let him back on? Simple question. Start in the top left-hand corner with DrHeemedOut. And I am again ask people to please try to, as much as possible, from leaving, rejoining the whereby as much as you can. Okay. You can start us off Heemed.
Hey, first of all, thank you for having me on, Dylan. I'm very glad to see that you're feeling better. I think I speak for everyone when I say the entire... Can I finish? I think I speak for everyone when I say we were all very worried about you, for real. So I'm really glad to see that you bounced back, and welcome back. Now, on to the issue of the Trump ban. I guess I don't really have an issue with it. I would have more of an issue with it if he was still a politician. But at this point, he's just a regular citizen, and these platforms are free to kick off anybody they want. I don't really see an issue with it. He obviously has shown that he has a pretty shitty track record when it comes to, TOS violations on Twitter. I'm sure I don't have Facebook, so I didn't keep track of them over there, but I'm sure they have a similar level of TOS over there. So to me, it makes perfect sense. I honestly thought that Twitter should have kicked him off even before he ever became president, when he was starting to say the stupid shit about Obama, about the birth certificate. And I don't know, we can have a bigger discussion, I guess, about what it is. Like, maybe at a certain threshold of followers, you should have a different TOS applied to you, where you have like responsibility to report or to tweet factual statements. So yeah, I guess I don't really have an issue with it.
Okay, next is going to be AmericanNacho.
Yeah, so I'm not really pro the Trump ban, even though I don't necessarily agree with Trump all the time. Like, I still think it's more healthy in general, especially since these places have turned into like a town square, so to speak. I think it's more healthy that these people are allowed in these spaces unless they're literally calling for violence against somebody else. Like, from like a business perspective, it's whatever, like they can kick off whoever they want, but unless there's some kind of like alternative social media that everyone's allowed on, and that it doesn't matter what you're saying on there unless you're violating like the First Amendment, that you're allowed to be on there. Until we have some kind of other option like that, or until we kind of maybe we need to look into like rewording Section 230 or more strictly interpreting that. I think it's still more healthy, even if people are saying dumb shit, to have them on the platform where other people can critique them, can criticize them, because when you ban people, it kind of turns them into like a martyr, and then it can confirm what to people who are more ignorant, like, oh, that these things that they're saying are actually true, and that's why they got banned, not because everything that they're saying is bullshit. So that's why I would be against that. So
okay, next I'm going to throw it over to Demonmama.
Yeah. As far as I'm concerned, I have no real problem with them upholding a ban against Donald Trump. I think that there are lots and lots of questions that we can dive into about how we should handle free speech in the age of the internet. But as it stands right now, it is well within their rights to do so. And I also think that it's an ethical decision. Donald Trump engaged in incredibly irresponsible rhetoric from from a place where he explicitly manipulated these platforms in order to further push misinformation. And we know we have a misinformation problem on the internet. To a certain degree, social media is still a bit of a frontier. We don't really know how the calculus all comes down to how quickly misinformation and being able to buy ads and stuff games the system and changes the way that we look at things. And I don't think that the risk of like people becoming a quote unquote martyr is as big as some people make it out to be. I do think there's some risk of it. But in cases like this, Donald Trump has flagrantly broken every TOS on almost every social media site again and again. And if Facebook has decided that their desire is to keep him off, I think that's probably going to be a net good for the world, in my opinion.
Okay, next I'm going to throw it over to Shaved.
So ultimately, I don't care that much because I'm not on Facebook. I hate Facebook. I think that they have awful lot of horrible business practices on like developing these dependencies that other companies rely on, and then later on like pull the rug out from under, and they kind of go in and buy them up when they can no longer compete because they've taken away their dependencies. For a long time, they've been an established market player that kind of sets the rules about more broadly across the market, and kind of sets some basic guideline principles for larger social networks, especially on enforcement. And from what I understand, initially it was like they had a private review board that said you have to like give a more definite timeline within 6 months. Is that incorrect? Like later on, they're going to reevaluate this? At least that's what I'm pretty sure that I've read. And so Demonmama is absolutely right. We're still like learning about online spaces, especially how to govern them. Facebook is largely responding to a demand for increase in like public moderation and like review boards, and like trying to establish a more clear guideline for what is and is not acceptable. I don't like where they're going, but like at least they're trying something. Keep Trump banned if you want. They're a private company, but if it like turns into some kind of public entity like some people are demanding, then you're in a different ball game.
Okay, I'm gonna throw it over now to Aristocracy.
Hey, I think honestly, like the stuff that Trump has been saying, I was shocked that he was even allowed to say a tiny bit of what he ended up saying. I remember in the beginning of the 2016 campaign, he literally called for the assassination of Hillary Clinton, and no one batted an eye. And he just got away with that. Like, and I don't even understand why it's even like, regardless of your personal opinion on free speech and stuff, like everyone knows that you shouldn't cry fire in in a theater and all that stuff. So I don't even think this is like a free speech argument, because even of the people I know who are free speech extremists, they would have said that the kind of things that he says should not be allowed. There just seems to be this double standard for Trump himself. People just don't treat the shit he says seriously, even though it causes actual consequences. And I just find that really strange. And yeah, that's it.
Okay, I'm going to throw it over to CTV.
Well, I suppose since no one else in the room is going to say it, I'm going to tell a whole bunch, a room full of grown people, right, that they need to start moderating their own content, right? That's what needs to happen. Everybody else is calling for Facebook to start doing moderation is a bunch of bullshit, right? The fact of the matter is you're too fucking lazy to hit that block button whenever you see something that you don't like, that you want to advocate that to the person that's setting up the platform, and then that way they get held potentially legally liable, right? This is all that kind of bullshit, right, that we're talking about when it comes to the censorship that's happening on the internet. What we have to be able to do is we have to be able to set up a framework where platforms can be established and they're not held legally liable for what third parties put on there as far as comments or whatever the case is, because they're not the writer, right? So publisher platform. So they're not the person writing it. So that's where I know I lost it right there. I had it going good and I fucking lost it, right? Fuck. That's what happens, right? I see that look, Maddie. I see it.
You hit the block button.
I seen it. Right. Okay. So moving on from here. The rest of the conversation is going to be somehow centered around Trump, right? But ultimately, at the end of the whole conversation, it's going to come back to people being too fucking lazy to moderate their own fucking content. That's where it's going to be at, right? And they're wanting to kick that responsibility off somebody else. So remember that at the end of this, whenever I wrap it back up, I'll put a nice, neat little bow on it for everybody.
Okay, I'm going to throw it over now to Maddie.
Yeah. So from a purely legal standpoint, Facebook is well within their rights to deplatform Donald Trump. There's no question about it. Those claiming that it's a First Amendment issue are just factually inaccurate. They are well within their rights to do so. From a moral and ethical standpoint, I also agree that it is the right thing to do. We have seen time and time again that deplatforming works when it comes to the proliferation and spreading of extremist ideas and misinformation. And since Donald Trump has been deplatformed, both on Twitter and Facebook, we've seen the amount of extremism that's being generated through those sites steadily decline. Also, the reality is, we can say, oh, but people are responsible for their own words, whatever. But then Donald Trump should hold some responsibility for what his words led to, which we saw come to fruition on January 6th. This is a direct result of his rhetoric, and this is him being held responsible for it. And ShavedDog, you're absolutely right. The Facebook board voted not to make the ban limitless, but essentially they're going to review again in 6 months for whether or not the ban is going to hold. I think all signs point to it holding, especially because Donald Trump shows no indication that he's going to temper any of his rhetoric and will be just as fantastical and absurd as always. So I think it's a good thing. And people, saying, oh, well, it's Facebook's fault. Like Facebook should be allowed to. No, they don't have to they don't have to platform anyone. They're well within their rights. They're their own company.
Okay. And we're going to wrap it up with counterpoints.
Penis, mic check. Can you guys hear me now?
Yeah.
Dude, I've been screaming penis into the void for like 15 minutes.
Now
it's been incredibly.
Video will be demonetized.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, that wasn't intentional. I thought. All right. Anyways, well,
Worry about it.
I definitely say a lot worse. I definitely say a lot worse things than the word penis. Like I don't know why you'd.
Great job, Marine. It's always one in the fucking crowd.
Donkey dick. All right. Anyway, so moving on for. All right. So for this subject particularly, we're at a crossroads conceptually, and the strongest right-wing argument for Donald Trump not being deplatformed is basically the idea of the commons. Okay. But the idea of the commons, I think, opens up a whole Pandora's box of issues that we would need to address if we were to take this line of argument. One of them is stochastic terrorism. So if we had jihadist recruiters who said, listen, I'm not saying commit terrorist attacks, but I am saying America is a unique evil, that they're terrible. They're slaughtering Muslims in the Middle East and North Africa. They're completely destroying us, and they have to be stopped. But jihadism is just a struggle, and I'm not advocating for terrorism, but I am saying that they're specifically evil. If we had neo-Nazis saying, "Oh well, I'm not saying attack Jews, but I am saying that they're a unique evil who's trying to destroy the white race." And you can go down each extremist ideology and basically go right up to the verge of violence and then just back out really quickly. And we already see this with certain public figures, some figures on YouTube. I think Tucker Carlson is an example that most lefties would call out as somebody who promotes the stochastic terrorism narratives. And if we had social media unable to block any of these figures, then we would have to put that job up to law enforcement. We would probably have to put that job up to civil suits. That way, if terrorism, murders, injuries, harassment, stalking, doxing, if all of that occurred under this new Wild West free-for-all, free speech, public commons definition of social media, then at that point, these people have to be held criminally and civilly liable for their actions on an individual basis, because in order to prevent terrorist attacks or criminal behavior, you're basically going to have to sue these people into the ground or throw them behind bars. So that's the strongest argument from the right wing for the public commons social media concept, and those are my concerns with the public commons social media argument.
Okay, so has everybody done their intros? I just want to ask that quick. Yep. Okay. Then you may begin.
Can I go in first? Okay. So one thing I wanted to bring up to just tag on to my opening statement, and I'm wondering what everybody thinks about this. I think one of the biggest issues with Donald Trump's rhetoric was the coronavirus misinformation. In particular, as someone who is a scientist, I have a major issue with science misinformation. And when someone has a platform the size of Donald Trump's platform or many, many other people, what they end up doing is they're basically doing scientific publications with their tweets. When they tweet out coronavirus is whatever, and it's not that dangerous, it's just a flu, they're literally doing scientific publication that has not gone through the rigors required for a scientific publication. I think that's one of the biggest problems I have. It's not like an opinion thing, like, oh, hey, I mean, it's not that the Obama birth certificate stuff was okay or not disgusting, but it's just that the effect of science misinformation is particularly harmful in the greater scale of things, and we can see how that played out in America. And the other thing I wanted to say is, so CTV, you brought up about people are too lazy to moderate themselves, and I completely agree. I would say Donald Trump was way too lazy when it came to moderation, and he was way too irresponsible. So if he was responsible with his platform, 100%, fine, have him. He can have a different opinion. It's his irresponsibility with the platform that was the biggest problem, and I think we are seeing him fade into obscurity. Imagine how much more of a platform or how much louder he would be post losing his job if he was still on Twitter, if he was still on these platforms. Instead, I saw a video of him from this weekend speaking at a wedding. He looked like a desperate wedding MC.
It was really sad.
Yeah, so we're clearly seeing that like these things actually do have some sort of impact on the greater scale.
I think what I'm seeing right now is a clear case of TDS coming to fruition. It's really beautiful, actually.
How so?
But to answer you, and as well as ask counterpoints a question at the same time, right? Don't you think that it would be much better if the courts were the one that were actually holding people liable for the things that they say, as actually per like the framework of our government, right? Like if you go to the North Carolina State Constitution,
it says a small government type.
Are you listening? Right? You're not listening whenever you're talking. So if you go to the North Carolina State Constitution, what you'll see is that in the Constitution, it says that the people will be held for the abuse of the freedom of speech, right? And the Congress at the federal level can't make anything with regard to that, right? So in this case, whenever you start pushing the moderation of the content up towards the corporate level, and in this case, whenever the corporate level has authority nationally, would be like the same correlative to the federal, right? What we really need is for people to be doing their own moderation, right? And if people do say things that are out of line, then they get held responsible in the courts, right?
Yeah,
because ultimately that's it.
But
At the end of the day, that's what you want to have is like clear-cut rules for like, hey, if you say these things and these types of things, and this thing's going to happen, right? And then that way it can be litigated. You know what I mean?
Can I address why this is a bad idea? Yeah,
because some people have
I could
70,000
also,
tweets.
Yeah. Okay. So
You're asking for the government to step in.
One person at a time counter than Demonmama.
Yeah, so the very specific reason why this is a very bad idea is because there is something, for instance, like in the state of Florida, there's a statute about telephone harassment. Basically, you can call somebody in a harassing manner, and it's actually a second-degree or first-degree misdemeanor. That has been expanded by the courts to also mean threatening text messages. So if you basically expanded this to social media, me calling you a scrotum and saying that you should KYS or something like that could be taken as like a direct threat or something that should get law enforcement involved, because I'm sending you a direct message that is meant to like emotionally hurt you. So if we were to expand this and then apply the laws that already exist for telephonic communication, then it opens up this whole can of worms that I think is pretty brutal and gross, where like you could be cross state lines, could be arrested for basically sending an upsetting message on Twitter. And I think this is the exact kind of thing that we're trying to avoid, is having men with guns showing up to your house to arrest you for being an edgelord.
Yeah, and that's exactly why, right? And in this case, when we're talking about a corporation like Twitter, Facebook, any of these platforms that you're talking about, right? This is where the individual needs to be moderating their own content, right? Because if the individual is doing that, that's how you ultimately remove any, someone's, say, potential ability to sway others' opinions, right? And it happens at the individual level. And that's ultimately what you want to have happen. If somebody's voice just gets removed, and then it's like, well, what happened to them? It's like, oh, well, then now they're the victim automatically because they were removed from the platform for X number, whatever reason. And that right there is exactly what you don't want to have happen, because you don't want to have sympathizers that may be a little bit deeper into it to then only bedrock themselves, right?
Okay, I'm gonna throw it over to Demonmama.
Thank you. Yeah, there's like a couple of reasons with the idea that everything that happens on the internet is just like that if you block them it just goes away, is just like it's like a baby's worldview. Like it's like object permanence. It's like what the fuck? Like when you say something on the internet, those ideas spread. You might be able to individually block that person, but you can't do jack shit about a president literally spreading medical misinformation, as Dr. Heemed brought up, which was something that I was really interested to talk about on here, because if a president is pushing out medical misinformation or any other type of dreadful misinformation, you could think of a million different types. Like there is no risk to igniting your propane tanks by throwing them into the fire pit. That would be horrible. You can imagine a million different versions, but you don't even have to, because he actually did it with COVID. And you might be able to push the block button and you're like, yay, I don't have to see Donald Trump's tweets anymore. but his tweets went out to thousands of other people who then digest those points, and then you're suddenly living in a plagued wasteland where there's somewhere in the ballpark of 600,000 people dead, like we do right now.
You know what?
Right,
Example?
so then the problem is though that when you smash the ban button, and people are believing what he's saying, you're galvanizing those people in their beliefs into what he's saying, and that's why I have a problem with that claim.
I disagree with that claim. I don't think that that's necessarily true. You might be galvanized.
It's happened though. Like as someone who's trying to be like somewhat anti-Trump from the right side, like as a Republican who's trying to move the party in a positive direction away from Trump, it makes it really fucking hard because people who follow Trump like religiously believe all that shit.
Yeah, but here's the problem.
This is where like the fact that you're saying that you don't believe it doesn't change the fact that it is in fact happening.
Hey, please don't make me raise my voice tonight. Demonmama, then CTV.
Thank you. The problem that I have with that particular claim is that like I don't. There is some level of like galvanization of the individuals who have already bought into it, but the problem that we have is the misinformation perpetuating. And we've been able, like a simple analysis of like viewership statistics and of the actual reach of messages, it has been done already. You can find this actively. If you want a great example of this, if you just want a case study that isn't Donald Trump, although Donald Trump has also been studied, is to go look at somebody like Milo Yiannopoulos, somebody who's
I was going to bring that up.
Yeah, deplatformed, and he just objectively on every single measure is reaching less people. Now, his most devoted followers are probably super on board, but they were already super on board to begin with. He's not putting out that harmful rhetoric to tons and tons of people. And I agree that there's a couple of differences between their circumstance, but the basic truth is that it actually does work to press the ban button and say, okay, we need to stop the flow of this misinformation. And I think that is especially important when we're dealing with things like an insurrection or a pandemic or information about how you can safely vote, which is another thing we haven't even touched on, that Donald Trump used these companies' platforms explicitly against their own rules to misinform people on how to participate in the democracy. That's so messed up.
Yeah, so whether or not you believe that galvanization is happening or not doesn't change the fact that it is in fact happening, right? You're being informed right now that it's happening. So if you can't understand it, like,
didn't listen to a single thing I said, did you?
Oh no, I listened to everything that you said, and now I'm telling you, right? That this galvanization is in fact happening.
The data contradicts that position.
Let's let CTV finish his point.
Right? So you just got told, right, by Nacho that it's happening. I'm telling you that it's happening. Now, either everybody that's fucking telling you that it's ever happening in the fucking world, right, is lying to you, or they're trying to just open your fucking eyes up to what does happen, right? And you can say one example as a fringe example, right? But in almost, it happens. So this is what you need to wrap your head around, right? You're being informed now that it happens, right? The silencing of the voices doesn't actually help. Right. As a matter of fact, it drives the information further underground. If you need a more relevant example, take it the fucking look at the drug war. Right. As soon as you fucking made that shit illegal and you censored it and you banned it. Right. And you prohibited it. All you did was made the market go underground, and the shit's still happening. Right. Those are if you can just take, I don't know, one thing in life, what you know is fucked up. Right. And you go, oh, it's the same thing over here. Okay. Maybe these two ideas are kind of the same. And you figure out how to fucking make them work. That's how you come to a common sense, right, type of ideology thinking when it comes to understanding shit, instead of just, well, this shit just doesn't happen. And here's why.
Okay. So again, I'll just point out you didn't listen to a single thing I said. I never said that it wasn't happening at all.
And I just told you that I did.
All right. Listen.
So either you're lying right now by saying that
much like Abraham Simpson walking outside and shaking his fist at an angry cloud, it is possible for any angry old person on any platform to say whatever they want, and that doesn't make it true. That said, I do agree to a certain degree that there is some galvanization. And if you hadn't turned off your brain halfway through my sentences before, you would have actually heard that I addressed that directly in saying that even if the existing believers are galvanized, they stop gathering new ones, and that's what we are most concerned about.
And
also,
I heard you.
Your
and then
allegation.
look, and I'm going to counter that. Look, you're not listening. You're not listening. All you want to do is do an ad hominem attack and try to say small brain, blah, 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 because you don't have an actual point.
We're putting a pause on this. Seconds, okay? Nobody's going to say anything. I didn't ask for any ohms.
Sorry.
Okay. So I have a list. Now, Maddie, Counter, then Heemed. Going to do that. Then we'll circle back to this interaction. Heemed. Maddie, you're.
Thanks. So here's the reality, CTV. I know that you're saying this is happening, this is happening. You hear me saying it's happening. You hear AmericanNachos saying it's happening. The reality is this: the data completely contradicts what you are saying. In fact, the reason that you see a lot of these ideas less proliferating less frequently than they were only a few months ago is directly correlated to Trump not having access to platforms like Facebook and Twitter. And that can be measured. Like, this is something that's easily measurable because these platforms can measure just how many posts are going out about certain topics or how, certain conspiracy theories are being circulated. They can measure this with data, and the data says that these ideas are going out at a lower frequency than they were when Trump was the main centerpiece, like proliferating them. So this isn't like, oh, but my feelings say that this is happening, because you know what? You're right. There are still people out there that are circulating these conspiracy theories that are essentially acting like a blowhorn for Trump. But the fact is that it's happening not as often, specifically because Trump is not on those platforms. And that is because deplatforming works, and the data backs that up. So I just want to make sure that we're grounding our arguments in reality, and the reality, especially with how we measure how messages across social media circulate, shows that him not being on social media has directly resulted in fewer COVID conspiracy theories circulating, fewer conspiracy theories circulating about voting, about the 2020 election. That's a direct result of his deplatforming.
Actually, you're wrong on all counts, right? Just
I'll
like
send you the
drug
data.
war, since the drug war, right, was in fact wrong on all counts as well, right? Everything that you just said, right?
What are you basing that on? What data set are you
Everything
looking at?
that you just said, right, it
What
was
data
said
set
about
are
the
you
drug
basing
war,
this
right? It's
on?
like, look at all the positive effects that we're having. Look, if the drug war would have worked, right, we wouldn't see all of the problems that we have today, because guess what? All it did was send it underground, just like it does anything else whenever you censor it and send it underground. It doesn't actually fix the problem. It just means that you're not looking in the areas where it's actually at. It's still fucking there.
Can I ask you a question? So I know this is what you feel is happening. You say you see this happening and you're attributing that to a larger trend. Where are you getting that result, that outcome from? If that is what you believe is happening, your belief is one thing, but what is the evidence? What data set is showing that these ideas are just as more frequently proliferated as they were when Trump was on the platform? How can you sit there saying that when there's no actual source of evidence or data set that backs that up? Because in fact, it backs up the complete opposite.
Yeah, I think you probably have to do more of a study of history, right? And then human behavior in order to understand exactly what we're talking about here, right? It's not
human
one of those,
behavior can be measured by these data points. That's exactly what I'm doing.
Not every single bit. Has it been measured for the last 1,000 fucking years? No, it hasn't.
Maddie,
you don't have
Maddie,
data
hold on.
points.
Wait, CTV, hold on.
See
CTV.
these things over time. So this is where your data, right, only supports whatever it is, this very specific thing that you wanted to support, just like they did with the fucking drug war, right? It's no fucking different. It's the same shit. You put a different fucking title on it, and they fucking package it up and ship it on down the fucking road. They say, hey, we're having a positive impact, when in fact all you're doing is censoring the fucking people, right, and keeping them from enjoying the freedoms that they should be able to enjoy at a national fucking level, right? If you want to hold somebody responsible for their freedom of speech inside their state, then fucking do that, because that's where the Constitution allows you to do
So
it.
I live in California, and Facebook's based in California.
By hitting the block button.
So I live in California. Facebook is based in California. You're saying at the state level. So if like Facebook as a California company wanted to ban Twitch because of the state laws in California, that'd be fine.
Go for it.
Well, you know, there's something I really wanted to
go
ask
for
you.
it. No, I'm being fucking serious right now. You laugh
wait,
because
wait,
you're like,
I
well,
asked
that was
you
your
a
fucking
question.
Demonmama, what's
model.
up?
And you're absolutely
Maddie,
fucking right. Would.
The question
Can I ask a quick
was
question?
answered. Okay, so Demonmama,
Yeah,
quickly,
listen, Maddie,
then we're going to go to counter and then Heemed.
You've got all this data and solid arguments, but have you considered that CTV's feelings disagree with that? I really think that you're overlooking a very serious angle of this here, okay?
You're right.
Okay,
I
so-
did not consider feelings.
Is
That
that
was
why
my
you put your
mistake.
hand up? You put your hand up to say that, Demonmama?
Robbed.
Worth it.
Throw it over.
Worth it.
Okay. Throwing it over to counter.
All right.
I'm sorry. Did something happen there?
All right. So okay. So this is the
Exactly.
pragmatic question we have to ask ourselves, because I hear what CTV is saying, and I think it's a logical extension of the public comments argument, which is basically that these platforms are just platforms. They're not publishers. They're not responsible for the content that they throw out. Therefore, people, unless they are actually committing crime, should be given freedom to say whatever they want as long as they're not actively committing crimes. What I am saying, though, is that there are a whole host of people who are committing crimes right now. If you were to extrapolate this to, again, like cell phones, telephones, written letters, anything like that. And these crimes are often taken quite seriously. So if you were actually threatening somebody with violence in an online communication, if you were to do that in person, or if you were to do that by mail, or if you were to do that by telephone, these things would be either considered aggravated, they would be considered assault, aggravated assault, or stalking, which are all crimes that are extremely severely punished in our society. So if we were to go with the CTV route, which is basically like, we should let the legal system handle that, that's okay. Like, that's okay. I understand it. But what we're actually talking about is like Scooter Punani 42069 being visited by law enforcement for telling somebody who lives in, like, he's in the Panhandle, and he threatened somebody in California saying like, hey, when you go to sleep tonight, I'm gonna fuck your mom and I'm gonna scoop out your eyeballs with an ice cream scoop. And then police officers are gonna show up to his house and charge him for basically what amounts to assault or stalking. If somebody gets blocked, and they move around that, like, and they basically create an alt profile, like, okay, Nacho, I think Nacho said good. I just don't like half the fucking
good.
Okay,
Fucking outstanding.
half the country's going to be in jail, including everybody on this fucking panel. What are we talking about
Look,
here?
I'm not the asshole that
I
creates
don't make
false
those
accounts
threats.
and
What do
goes
you
sending
mean?
fucking shit to people,
Look,
right?
Matt-
I don't do that, so I got no fucking problem with anybody else. that
Maddie's
decides to do
acting
that
all
shit and be
innocent.
held
She was talking
responsible.
crazy shit about
Well,
my mom last week. So, like, I
mean,
know.
There's also
No,
there's
but
also a pragmatic problem
so-
here, which is that as it currently stands, trying to bring moderation of every single public forum under the direction of the existing federal government is like the most ridiculously big government move I can possibly imagine. It would be tantamount to nationalization of the social media industry. But I assume,
Yeah, so
I'm trying. Wait, well,
it's
hold
either
on. I'm
that or
trying to
leave it
put.
to the corporations.
I'm trying to put together, what the argument from the right side of the panel,
Or-
with the
or
exception of
people.
CounterPoints, who, yeah, I'm trying to put it together, because like, if you don't support nationalization, but you want the government to have to be responsible for legally moderating every comment on social media, like, what are you asking for? Like, it doesn't even make sense. It's even sillier than the idea of nationalization, which I don't really think that nationalizing social media is the right answer. But like, even if you were to do that, that would at least mean that like, if you nationalized it, you would be taking over the companies that exist and using their infrastructure for moderation, but just controlled by the government. But the way you're proposing it is like, we need to create an internet police department that would be so big that they would have to go through DMs of thousands of spam bot accounts and porn bot accounts. It's absolutely
it wouldn't even get to that. People would just up and leave. People would just go host their servers in a different
actually, that
country.
wouldn't happen at all. That wouldn't happen at all right now, because if say the federal government did nationalize all these major platforms, the First Amendment would guarantee that Congress would not be able to pass any type of legislation with regard to moderation, because it would be at the federal level. So then the moderation would definitely.
No,
how is that not accurate?
So
If
what we
Congress
would get
can't
is that-
pass a law,
There's
what you are
precedent.
advocating for is detonating all social media overnight. That's what you're advocating for.
Let's do
Okay,
it.
Demon Mama had a 5-second comment at the end of my speech. Can I have a 5-second comment?
Sure, and then we got to go to Heemed.
Okay, Maddie, I know you are Scooter Pooter 42069, okay? I know that's you. Stop threatening my mother.
Okay.
Yield.
So I'm going to throw it over to Heemed, and I need to step away for a second because I need to take a pill or something, okay? So, Heemed, can you just, please, everybody,
yeah, I'll take
be
over,
ruly,
yeah.
please.
Of course, yeah. Okay, so it seems like there's a little bit of a disconnect. On one side, you have Demonmama accurately pointing out the fact that deplatforming Milo Yiannopoulos worked. On the other side, you have CTV accurately pointing to the fact that the drug war is fucked up. I agree with both of you. I think we can come to a common understanding that when these figures are banned from social media platforms, there obviously is some outrage. I don't think it's controversial to admit that.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I just saw the Eris thing. Eris,
yeah,
okay.
Yeah, I was gonna give it to her anyways. But yeah, so I think it's like pretty understandable that some people are gonna get upset when their favorite media star gets banned. But I also think a stronger motivator is just people are lazy. They will forget about it. They will go on Twitter and let the algorithm decide. They will find a new personality to like. They will, and slowly over time, those old figures, they fade out, and their passion for how angry they were when Trump was banned will die out, and some new issue will come up. And I think both sides are correct here. I guess we should go to Eris probably. She was next.
Score, I get to talk. Yeah, I try to write it subtly, raise my hand, but because I don't have the ability to raise my hand, unfortunately. But I really agreed with everything Maddie and Demonmama had to say. So, Gucci on the girls in the room. Okay, CTV, I had a question for you. This is my first time meeting you. So nice to meet you. You mentioned earlier, like you seem to kind of really harp on this idea of it should be totally okay as long you can just completely edit your own content. You can just click block, click turn it off, and that seems to be like a common thing. Would you apply that to all other issues? Or is this only because I'm guessing there's some content that you think should be banned? Because it's not like if someone is just posting, I don't know, child pornography everywhere, it's an answer to that wouldn't just be like, oh, let's just turn off that content, right? Because it's harmful for the larger community.
Okay, can you clarify your question? Because I feel like there was like two parts of it that didn't exactly mold together.
Well, I was just wondering if there would be any other situations that you would apply that to. That idea of removing, just edit your own content. Because you kept saying edit your own content, right?
I would say that anything that you're putting your time, effort, and energy into, right? You should probably be doing a certain amount of editing with that if you care about it at all, right? If you're building something, right, you want to make sure that you understand the specifications, electrical currents that could be running through something, different dimensions of wood that you might need to have built in order to form a structure. So like there's a whole lot of editing that goes into anything that anybody is doing if they care about what they're doing, right? If you're more haphazard about the way that you do that, then you are say in the instance of electricity, are going to get an electrifying experience when you get held responsible for you not doing your fucking homework, right? So the same thing can happen with regard to the words that you choose to use, or the hateful nature, or the possible threatening or otherwise nature use of those words.
Sure, but do you think it's always it's always the responsibility of like the consumer of, say, like Facebook? If we're talking about Facebook, do you think it's always the consumer of the consumer's responsibility to be turning off any kind of content that is problematic?
The individual is ultimately always responsible to the
Would you
individual.
say that's the case for child pornography?
Like
if someone saw child pornography,
someone watching child pornography, do you think that there's a situation where they are not individually responsible for partaking in that particular type of content?
No, if it just comes up on your feed, right? Most people would report it to Facebook so that account gets banned, right? Would you agree that that's the right recourse?
Yeah, but that's someone else is being abused, and that's literal footage of someone else like being abused, like someone's committing a crime.
Okay, but then that means that we're establishing at least that it's okay. But that means that we're establishing that it's at least okay to expect some kind of standard for those companies to be abiding by. Okay, so it just seems to be that you just don't think that what Trump did, is comparable.
To be wrong about something is not a crime, though. Like it's probably better, arguably, for them to be on. Like it makes it harder.
What if you're inciting violence? What if you're inspiring people to watch child porn?
Look, we can look at it all types of examples of political figures that have been using the same type of rhetoric on all types of sides for a long time, right? The fact that
that's not true, though.
That is true. We've got Maxine Waters as a few different times in the last few years where she was saying, go get in people's faces and push them out of the way and get more confrontational. These things have been happening. It's already been to the fucking House.
Wait, one second. Hold on.
It's not about lying. It's already been to the...
One second.
Yeah, you are, though.
Wait, hang on, Demonmama. 1 sec. Can't we not say that what Maxine Waters did was wrong too?
Yeah, why can't we do that?
Okay, but we're not talking about Maxine Waters. This is about Trump.
Right. So the point is that when we're talking about political rhetoric, which is how Maxine Waters even got brought up into it as an example, right? Is that the rhetoric that's being used, and this is what Nacho is talking about Nacho, take it from there.
Yeah, well, the real question is are we going to just let the private corporations decide what is going to be in our feed and what's not going to be in our feed?
They already do that though.
They already do.
That's what I'm saying.
Entirely.
So we need to either reword the part of Section 230 where they talk about like lewd, lascivious, or otherwise objectionable. That little section, otherwise objectionable. Those two words are what allow social media companies to basically ban and block people and remove people at their own will. So it just depends on the day. Now, next, 2 elections from now, it could be the other way around, and you could see them cracking down on those who are on the left. And we don't want this to be the situation. We don't want them to have that much power over. So either we need to reword Section 230. We need to come up with some kind of national public social media. I have no idea.
It's not just Section 230.
So you want to have a large government program?
I guess so. Hey,
I would like to follow up with. I would like to follow up on Nacho with a comment as well.
Okay. And I would like a Ferrari. Okay. So I just got back. Eris got to talk, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. So on the list I have, it's Counter, Shaved, Demon, then Maddie. Okay. Right.
Okay. I'll be super brief too. I'll basically give you guys more fuel to the fire. So here's my concern that I think Nacho is articulating that I think is very real, is that when you have algorithmic content dictated by social media companies, you can basically build or bury stories as you see fit. This is a really large concern. I think Hunter Biden is a good example, but I think an even better example is Ghislaine Maxwell. Ghislaine Maxwell was basically the mistress of Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein was a person who was accused and convicted of basically hiring, recruiting, and abusing underage prostitutes. He had various high-level political figures who were his friends at certain periods of time. These include Donald Trump himself. This includes Bill Clinton. This includes a whole host of people who are Alan Dershowitz. This includes a whole bunch of really powerful people. And what happened was Jeffrey Epstein allegedly committed suicide in jail, and his mistress is now under prosecution, but we don't hear anything about her. nothing about the mistress who helped recruit underage prostitutes that allegedly had sex with some of the most powerful people on the planet. And what we also don't know, I have more conspiratorial shit, but basically you should check out who Ghislaine Maxwell's dad is. And basically the point being that, like, what's going on here? Did an intel agency honeypot a bunch of high level, a bunch of high level people? Was this just a billionaire playing power games? We literally don't know, because the news and algorithmic cycle is not interested in promoting this story because it fucks over rich and powerful people. And that's my fear. And I think the fear that Nacho was talking about is if you leave this in the hands of purely corporations, and if everybody gets their news from social media, then they can bury or build stories as they see fit. Yield.
But news companies been doing that forever.
Sure.
If anything, there's more transparency now, even with the suppression that you think there is on social media. You can't deny that there's 100% like way more news and
the only
voices.
the only reason why I know who Ghislaine Maxwell's dad is because I have the ability to Google him. But at the same time, like that, this is kind of my point. This is why I'm not advocating for government intervention. I am saying that better the devil you know than the devil you don't. But that doesn't mean they're not the devil.
I agree at the basic principle of no government intervention in this. But I can at least recognize Facebook's position and how they came to be such a massive market force. And I don't know why so many people are like fighting to retain this certain platform. Like, at least like they want it their way, and they don't want the corporation to rule themselves. Facebook is like a online society of 2.7 billion people. And like up until now, they even haven't had to like face these kind of major questions of how they're going to govern it. And it's an incredibly complex question. I don't want to like skim over anything, but I wanted to at least like address CTV. Some people want moderated platforms. Other people don't. Some people want entirely self-moderation. Other people want to like have a safe environment. There's really kind of two large examples of how we organize our like social media platforms. There's the like really centralized like Facebook, Twitter, and account-based, identity-based like platforms. And then there's the like anonymous platforms like 4chan. When you enter into like a more centralized one, you have like the basic set of rules. You have your TOS, you have like the laws that's already governed there. And then you also have like an agreement to arbitration. They get to basically kind of decide how they receive you and whether or not they're going to continue on your platform. If you go on 4chan, where there's no accounts other than trip coding, the first thing you're hit with is a quote. A very important quote is that the stories and information posted here are artistic works of fiction and falsehood. Only a fool would take anything posted here as fact. The only other rules that govern this site are no illicit content. And that basically governs all websites on the internet. The ones that have tried like 8chan fell like horrible victim to like, CP issues and stuff. So it's not around anymore. They weren't able to effectively moderate their site. But like 4chan, on the other hand, like if you want to go and try and compete in this highly like anarchist market of ideas of self-moderation, where you literally like hide what you don't want to see, and like you could see like links to Live Leak or anything else, like you can choose that. Yeah.
Yo, no comment, chick. You keep rehosting my stream. I'm gonna take your shit down. So stop. This is your one warning. Continue.
On the other hand, like I understand this concern of having big corporations like dictate their own decisions, but like I think Facebook's going to die in the future. Most people are moving back towards like federated systems of self-moderation. You like associate in the Discord that you want to hang out with. The circles are closing. People are moving back to IRC, Rocket Chat, Matrix, Riot, and moving away from these big centralized platforms and kind of like trying to reinstitute self-governance on the internet and really develop these kind of systems. I'm someone who's very familiar with kind of trying to figure this out, as well as like with the laws and how they work. Like if you like with Section 230, if you run a social media platform or like an archive website and illicit content gets hosted on there, you're not responsible for it until it's reported. until you're aware of the content on your website, like the violent threats to somebody's life or something like that, that nobody can act on it or remove it or like take any kind of movement. So like the report system and that kind of like upward level, like that is just a standard that is always going to be around in online governance, is this reporting. Like it's a good thing. It helps filter content, especially illicit content.
So yeah, there's been a couple of different things that we've touched on here that I wanted to touch on. The first one is a bit of a throwback, so I'll actually.
I know I said a lot. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. The first one I want to respond. I do want to say, like, with regard to 4chan and even 8chan, these are not spaces that are moderation free. They are just on the low end of moderation. And like, if you've ever spent any time on these sites, you know that there are mods, there are moderation rules, and those moderation rules can be pretty strict. The idea of like a free speech zone on the internet simply doesn't happen. There's no full one because they don't work. They don't work on a mechanical level. The moment that you get rid of all the rules, you will just end up with spammed Bitcoin scams, porn, all kinds of nonsense. It's literally unusable. It becomes unusable. And so that's part of it. And then the other part, CTV isn't here, but I mean, I don't really honestly don't know if that's going to change much. The drug war analogy is incredibly stupid. The idea that there's like there's no difference between a person using a platform like a bullhorn to spread misinformation versus drug dealers selling something that people consume and use to get high, and then you try to repress that, and so people actually want it more and are willing to pay more. These are just like, they're totally different things. And I understand that there's like, hey, there's truth in both of these statements, but it's like a non sequitur. There's barely any comparisons between the idea of like free speech on the internet and the drug war. They're just really, those aren't comparable at all. Again, you're talking about restricting a desired consumer good, whether you want to call it that or not, versus talking about somebody who's blasting out disinformation or something else like that. In addition, there was a couple of other things that were brought up, comparisons to other political figures and other people who may have put out bad messaging or whatever. Yeah, I agree. If you violate the TOS, hey, you might get kicked off, and you probably should if you violate the TOS. But the fact of the matter is, we already have examples of like all kinds of people getting banned from all kinds of stuff. What happened with Donald Trump was genuinely unprecedented. I can think of almost no example in internet history of someone who flaunted and violated every TOS in addition to national laws while not receiving anything but a slap on the wrist. I mean, they had to like Twitter had to invent like 3 entirely new features just to deal with Trump. There was no alert of misinformation that could appear on a tweet in front of something and link to something else before Donald Trump exists. He was so bad that they had to do it. So like the idea that like, oh, it's everybody, all politicians do that. No, they don't. Do all politicians lie? Yes. But very few of them get to the level of just abject disinformation and complete disregard for any sense of democracy or civil society as Donald Trump does. Sorry.
Yes, you're absolutely right. The fact that I wasn't sitting here didn't make your bad ideas any better, right? So they're definitely still bad. So the reality is, is that Trump's rhetoric has been no different than a lot of the other politicians that are out there using the same rhetoric. So the reality is that he's not saying anything that's been any different than what other politicians have already been saying. What? Go get in their face, get confrontational. We got to fight, right? Matter of fact, that's just a lot of sports language that gets used whenever people are getting ready to, start playing football or something. So,
am I the only one here who's just like missed like a huge chunk of that sentence and it also still didn't make sense afterwards, or was that?
I blacked out.
I feel like we're looping a little bit. Can I jump in? For a second?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. So Shaved Dog, you said that some website they say this is a big meme. Don't take anything here seriously.
Yeah,
Right?
so 4chan like has the
Oh, okay.
disclaimer: anything taken here or posted here is a work of fiction. Only a fool. So like as Demonmama said, it's not totally ungoverned. Like there's like you have to keep it topical and stuff.
Right.
But essentially the base rule, like you can throw the in slur or F slur
So
on any portion of the website is not moderated.
So
that's
I think
kind of.
Yeah, so I think there's a kind of a bigger story here, and that would be like you see recently. I just saw this recently, and I looked through the entire court document of Tucker Carlson and how he can't be held responsible for anything he says because they basically have gotten an out where they say everything he says is just for show or for entertainment or whatever, and that is kind of an out when we can all agree, everyone here should be able to agree that nobody watches Tucker Carlson for entertainment. The people who watch him believe that what he's delivering is the news. So I think there's a little bit of responsibility here that that we should take into consideration, where it's like if someone says, hey, everything, don't take anything I say seriously, and then they present it in a serious manner and they pretend like it's news, they have a news desk, where do we draw the line? Where do we go from here, I guess?
Ooh, I got it. So basically, up until like 1992, I want to say, or like 1980 something, there was something called the Fairness Doctrine, which was basically something that stated that if you presented a certain narrative, you also had to present competing narratives. I know that this is incredibly difficult to do on the internet because the truth is there's not 2 narratives or 3 narratives anymore. There's 10,000 narratives. So that's kind of hard to do fairness doctrine. Like we start talking about like, I don't know, Jeffrey Epstein, and then we have to bring like QAnoners on, right? Like it's hard to moderate that kind of shit. But what you could do is you could say, if you are legacy media, like cable, news shows, whatever, you have to abide by the fairness doctrine, or you have to have a statement about whether or not you are explicitly a news program or explicitly an entertainment program or an edutainment program. Basically delineating those 2 kinds of content. That way, if people want news, there's the classic Tom Brokaw or Walter Cronkite kind of thing where it's like, here's the facts, here's the narratives, here's the factions, blah, blah, blah. Here's everybody's perspective. And then after that, you could say, hey, here's the edutainment or entertainment section of the portion. And then you have Tucker Carlson coming out talking about how Nancy Pelosi is sucking adrenochrome out of like abortion fetuses. And
yeah, it's weird.
Like, and so you could separate those 2 forms of content publicly, and even on the internet. So I know that like freedom of speech, don't compel people's speech, don't tell them what they can say, what they can't say, all that kind of shit. But at the same time, if at the beginning of my show I had to say, hey, listen, I'm an asshole with a webcam and I just have opinions. I try to make sure those opinions are rooted in reality. Dylan does this shit before shows sometimes where he basically calls all of us assholes to his audience and says, hey, these are just assholes with webcams. Take everything they say with a grain of salt. I don't think that's like an undue or unfair caveat to put, especially on people who are profiting from creating content. I don't think that's an undue burden to say, hey, is this news, factual presentation of stats and data and narratives for your review and consideration from a semi-objective perspective, or this is entertainment, this is our opinions and bullshit.
But then maybe there should be some sort of restriction on using the word news if it's for entertainment.
Yeah, I mean, like we could work this out, but
yeah,
you would have to this idea is incredibly unpopular out of like the 4 people nodding their heads here, because if you bring this out to mainstream America, then they're just going to say, this is America, don't tell me what to say, don't tell me what to do, fuck you. I thought this was America, and that's pretty much going to be the whole.
Yeah, well, didn't
response.
I mean all these platforms kept putting all the little banners under everything. Anytime you even mention, like, if you just put COVID in the title, like they're going to put a little banner on your thing that says like here CDC results, like all this stuff. Like, what's wrong with doing that? And then if someone is consistently spreading like some kind of misinformation or whatever, you can have them. You know what I mean? And that's where it bothers me to like. I don't want to force a social media company, a private company, to do these kind of things. So that's why I would more lean towards like reinterpreting Section 230. But I mean, how about we already know what shadow banning is. Everybody here knows what shadow banning is. So why not, instead of it being secretive. Like, just be open about it. Just be like, hey, look, you're consistently spreading misinformation. You're consistently doing this. Da 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 da. So we're going to take you and put you on like a no algorithm list. Like your stuff will not be promoted by the algorithm. You will not be on the play next tab ever. You can still exist on this platform, but people will only be able to come and visit your site if they had the link. And that's still better to me, because then someone can come to that place. Like, I could go to Trump's page and try to convince all the Trump supporters that we have better options. Like, as
could you give me a second?
someone trying to move the Republican Party in the other direction.
Okay, we're gonna go to Maddie and then Eris. Sorry, Eris, it's just sometimes hard to see the.
One thing I think that is really important to remember as well is that a major reason why a lot of these companies have TOSs in the first place is because they are looking to mitigate risk. Because at the end of the day, they are there to make money. We exist in a capitalist system. So these companies are only going to provide this kind of service so long as it is profitable. It is profitable because they sell massive space to advertisers and brands who associate with them. The issue with then, if they were to eliminate the bulk of the moderation that they currently have instituted as part of being on their platform, they run the risk of then having brands drop spending with those companies because they don't want to be associated with things like neo-Nazism, with pedophilia, with all these other things. So at the end of the day, we have to remember that these companies are there to mitigate risk. So that is a significant reason why they move to ban certain things. Because if I'm a Nike, I'm a Coca-Cola, I don't want my ad showing up next to content that could be potentially a brand risk. So I would spend my advertising money elsewhere. So we can, wax poetic about whether or not it's ethical or moral, whatever, but know that at the end of the day, a lot of it's going to be, well, what threatens the profit margin for those companies? And for a lot of the other organizations that spend a lot of money with them, where Twitter and Facebook get the bulk of their revenue, they don't want to be associated with that content. So at the end of the day, we can complain as much as we want, but if it's not profitable and it's going to be a brand risk to big companies that spend a lot of advertising dollars, nothing's going to happen. Like, they're going to follow what those companies want.
I mean, Trump was definitely valuable or profitable as far as like advertisements go. Like, but
to a certain degree,
profitable to hate.
The fact that those social media platforms will allow leaders from other countries to call for the death of people from another nation or the death of a leader of another nation, and then these companies and corporations don't blink an eye at that. Like,
you know what I mean? Like, I would need you to cite what, like, a specific
Twitter?
time when that happened. In what
Twitter
context,
was
though?
I want to say it was like Saudi officials or something. I'll grab the link.
Yeah, because I agree. I think it should be consistent across the board with the way they enforce TOS. In fact, Twitter is the worst perpetuator of this, where if you have a blue check mark, you are held to a completely different standard in terms of TOS violations and actually seeing any accountability for those violations than if you don't have a blue check mark. So I agree. I would like to see their TOS more evenly enforced.
Nacho, I think it's someone said they want to see Israel wiped off the map or something.
That was I almost guarantee you that was Ayatollah Khamenei.
Yeah, it was like a specific. Yeah, I think it was like
the Iranian Ayatollah.
Yeah, he should be. Yeah. I think he should be banned.
Demonmama raised.
Yeah. So it's interesting we're touching on this on the sort of profit incentive getting in the way of either the betterment of the site or the betterment of the world. I mean, arguably that already happened with Trump. The only reason that that Twitter gave Trump so many warnings seems to be because his followers and his presence was relatively profitable for them. It certainly was for Facebook. Facebook made millions of dollars, like publicly documented dollars off of Donald Trump's advertisements that his teams were purchasing on there. So they're taking it on one hand, it speaks to the level of the degree to which the profit incentive can stand in the way, because what this is sort of illustrates is that it would have been better for a lot of reasons to take Trump off, but the companies didn't do it because they wanted to keep making money, even though he was shitting up their space, even though his followers were shitting up the space for everyone else, even though they were literally, I mean, there's a million things you could talk about. Like I said, there's like an overwhelming amount that we could specifically touch on, everything from Donald Trump organizing people into insurrectionary action to COVID misinformation. We could talk about all those. That's one of the things too. But we've also seen this go in the other way. And I do agree that there is some issues with the idea of handing over all like all moderation or power of whatever to corporations, because we already see this happen. I mean, there was a massive issue. People don't remember this because it happened quite a while ago. But at one point, YouTube was actively suppressing LGBT content because it wasn't advertiser friendly, like and it still happens to this day, by the way. You will get one of the most surefire ways to demonetize your video is to put the word gay in the title. Will almost always guarantee a demonetization, even if you're not talking about anything else that otherwise is demonetizable. There are just a lot of companies that automatically shut that down. So we do have issues with this, but I don't think that it's as simple as saying like, oh, well, Donald Trump shouldn't be banned or anything like that. Donald Trump was just, again, flagrantly violating TOS, completely making these places unusable to all the other users. And I don't know, like, there's a lot of people that fixate on Section 230. That's not really the issue. The greater issue is that we don't know yet. We haven't yet figured out how to manage, how to deal with the fact that we have corporations that control social space now. We haven't figured that out at all. But the answer isn't in basically making the modern internet impossible via striking down Section 230 or something along those lines.
Yeah, and I wouldn't call for like striking it down. I just think there's parts of it that need to be more strictly interpreted. But I mean, and to go back to something that was said way earlier, I don't want to keep it on Trump too much because I think you're right. Like there's a deeper issue, but like the data for this was something that I wrote down way earlier, so I'm going way back, but data for like numbers for Trump like dropping on these websites like isn't really a good indicator right now given the fact that he lost the election. So like of course the topic of conversation is going to change to like what Biden is going to do, etc. But I mean Trump is still holding huge speeches. Like he just held another one I thought that was live. I could be wrong about this, but it was on RSBN, and usually they only do like his live speeches. So like there was a massive crowd. They could have been doing a replay, and I'll have to go look it up to be sure. I'll look it up in my history, but and he still has a massive email list. He's still getting donations like crazy, and every right-leaning pundit and politician still sees him as the only viable candidate right now as far as like everyone to get behind. So he still clearly has a massive following, and the easiest way for me, I think, in my opinion, to be able to try to turn some of the people away is if he was allowed on these spaces where people could come on there and try to attack and critique his ideas and his platform and move people away from that. Like,
but
that's what I'm trying to do. So
yeah, it didn't work for the last 4 years though. And that sort of speaks, like the current state of affairs kind of speaks to the fact that, no offense, but anti-Trump right-wingers failed. You failed to self-regulate your own party, and you let a bunch of conspiratorial maniacs basically take it over, and now it's out of your control. And when everybody else has to say, okay, like this guy that you let take over your party that you all got on board with for a long time is now ruining everything else and killing thousands of people by spreading explicit disinformation. Well, whether you want to argue with him more or not, he's become a problem for everybody else in the world. So even
now, you're removing a representative from House leadership just because she doesn't go along with the lie that Trump didn't actually win the election and it was stolen. Like, that's still happening right now because that's how far his rhetoric and blind worship has infected the core of the Republican Party. And a lot of it's because people weren't going to, I know I'm using very inflammatory rhetoric. It's the same kind of rhetoric I use when I talk about Connor's mom, but there was an opportunity at some point for the GOP to say, no, this is unacceptable, and to rebuff it, but that didn't happen. And now we're seeing what that looks like.
Listen, number one, Dorothy Mantooth is a fucking saint, okay? Second of all, Yeah, so this is a frustration as somebody who is typically identified as center. Oh, you're the rational right winger, except when it comes to guns. But this is the frustrating thing though, because basically like I can trot out maybe some Jordan Peterson milquetoast bullshit about personal responsibility. I can talk about like mixed economy capitalism as preferable to socialism. I can talk about the power of like 2-parent households and the need for families and blah blah blah. And basically, I'm doing a better job, and I'm not taking it personal. But let's just say that some of the rhetoric from the left wing has been a bit aggressive. I think that's okay to put it tactfully. So my problem with that is that there are real things that we could be working on. I think law enforcement reform is a good example. I think immigration reform is a good example. I think that a lot more people, because of the disaster of COVID, are a little bit more open to government redistributism when it comes to taxes and benefits. So there is a whole host of productive things that we could work on. But basically what I'm getting is and this is one of my problems with panel shows in general, is like you have to sign on to fundamental axiomatic leftist beliefs or else you're a shitbag. And if you don't sign on to these axiomatic beliefs, then you're a fucking asshole. And like basically we can't move forward on the things that might be productive or compromise. So my options are either like anarcho-capitalist fucking neo-monarchy with Trump, or fucking like crazy fucking progressivism. And I'm sorry, like I can't sign on for either one. Like I need to work with the rational people on both sides.
Where did that happen in this panel? Like where
not in this panel specifically.
Any attempt at that.
Well, no. Demonmama, I'm very happy that our relationship is significantly improved from when we first started. But I think that you could even describe our relationship. Okay. I think you could even describe our relationship when it first started as a little bit contentious. I think that's fair to say.
I mean, yeah, but let's not try to hash that out here on this panel. All I'm saying is on this, especially on this topic, I think that the left has been more than reasonable. Yeah. Whereas, besides, and to your credit,
I can back that up too.
I think, thank you. But I think your position is pretty reasonable on this, CounterPoints. I just think that like this, most of my contentions have come from a couple of small contentions with AmericanNachos position, and mostly a lot with critically thinking veterans. Like I don't even want to call it a position. It's just like the idea that you can just, if you see something bad that you don't like on the internet, oh, well, just block it and that'll fix it. As if like, yeah, there's just like a den of I think Eris was completely on point. The idea that you could just, I don't want to see, child porn is coming on my screen. Oh, just block it. You can't let the social media companies can't do anything about that. Nobody can do anything
about it. Still not
a
fair comparison.
Except for maybe if we make
not a fair
the department
at all, but that's all Demonmama knows how to do, right? It's just like paint this whole negative picture over here that actually didn't happen, right? And then like what actually happened is over here not being the same thing. It's not anything new.
Well, we still don't. We still are missing.
I literally don't actually know what that means. Like, what do you mean by any of those words?
So,
that sentence made no sense to me. Can anybody else explain what he meant there?
I don't even want to.
No, but I
want to touch.
I can back up what you were saying.
Can I just say it? We completely skipped Eris.
Oh,
sorry.
I DM'd Eris earlier, and Eris DM'd me and said that she didn't want to speak. I think. Eris, was there correction at some point? Did you want to speak?
No, you're right.
Okay. So yeah, I actually think probably wrap this up soon because we do get the topics. It's already 9:30 almost p.m. and that means we only have hours left. So do you guys want to go around the room quick? Okay. We're going to do outros. Heems, we're going to start with you.
Okay. So I thought this was a interesting, fruitful discussion. Again, I don't really think Trump is going to be relevant. A lot of people think he's going to run again. I don't see it happening. I think Trump realized how difficult of a job it is to be a successful politician. And if anything, he can go start his own media company where he can be surrounded by yes men, and he doesn't have to get bogged down in the nitty gritty of, politics. And so I don't really think it's that big of an issue. But furthermore, I think that what the interesting discussion was about, like, what I brought up, I think it was one of my key point in this topic is that, like, when you have people that are spouting scientific misinformation with such a large platform, they're literally publishing scientific studies or scientific claims that have not gone through the rigors that is required for scientific publication to make it to a journal. I think this is something that we should be very, look at very carefully, because if we start going down this route where every fucking person with 100,000 million people, 10, whatever, 60 million people is able to just spout any sort of scientific misinformation they want, we quickly start going down a path that can result in a lot of negative harm done. And the example I always like to use is something that we can all agree is a functioning thing. It's like if someone comes out, imagine if Donald Trump tweeted out, "Hey everyone, insulin doesn't work. If you have diabetes, don't take insulin." We would all unanimously agree that this is completely irresponsible and it should be deplatformed. So just going on that, I think that he should be deplatformed, and fuck it. Some other Republican will rise to power or rise up in the ranks, whatever. It's not that big of a deal.
Okay, next I'm going to throw it over to American Nacho. Is it easy to hear me now, by the way? Is it easier to hear me by chance? Okay, American Nacho's next.
Yeah, so as the founder of the new term, I think anyways, I'm still looking into it, but progressive Republican, like this makes it more difficult for me to like combat some of this bullshit that surrounds Trump. So personally, I still don't know if he should be banned. Like you raised an interesting article where he did. I went and watched that and read the article where he talked about, like, he basically hinted at like Hillary's assassination, but him saying it off the platform makes it like muddies the water as far as like, does that mean the platform shouldn't host him or whatever the case may be? I don't know, but either way, it is a pretty serious situation that we're in, because underlying Trump's ban is like, should we allow the corporations to basically have a monopoly on the quote unquote like town square? And that's where it bothers me. And I think the majority of people on the left and the right who have problems with like censorship, etc. So we really need to start considering looking into like, reinterpreting Section 230 or coming out with some kind of like public option. So something has to change though with the way we treat this new like town square, so to speak. There are other things that I wanted to tack onto the end of what CounterPoints was talking about earlier, such as things like if I said the name Anwar al-Awlaki, probably nobody in this room knows who that is. Or if I said Reality Winner, nobody might know who that is. Like, these are people who, well, good, I'm glad, but like, so these are things that were definitely repressed by the media, because it is pretty strong evidence of our government like overstepping some serious boundaries and going after people who are like whistleblowers, like NSA whistleblowers, etc. People who leak documents on a lower government level and basically throwing the book at them. And these things are okay to be repressed, by the media, and it makes it really hard. Like I said, I'm just going to repeat it. Like it really galvanizes those who are believing some of these conspiracies. Whenever you do ban a person like Trump, especially someone who has been president, like it makes it even harder, the fact that he was actually the president, etc. So
okay.
I would rather have like open shadow banning or something like that. So.
Okay, Shaved.
I don't want to claim to have like some amount of secret knowledge or memes, but I'm someone who's spent, I'm sure everybody else has, but spent an incredible amount of time in online spaces over the years. One of those things that I do is I archive them as well in mass. I help moderate and administrate the largest and most detailed 4chan archive, as well as help maintain archives with like the Wayback Machine online. Absolutely. Demonmama is 100% right that actually the liberal spaces were incredibly like cautious on like cracking down on people. There was like so many from 2015 onwards, like so many debates over are the Donald, or like how are we going to respond to this kind of speech? Like, do we want to allow this? And eventually, as time went on, I guess they won, but it took the entirety of Donald Trump's presidency to happen. I don't want to like say that this was caused by 4chan and the meme lords and the hacksaws, but it's more that like 4chan was the less moderated alternative where the already organized people could go and meme. And then Trump was a memey dude that you make funny stuff about in the positive or negative light. And it just so happened in those spaces, if you put them in a positive light, they get more triggered reactions that they want. Content moderation is incredibly difficult. And like now that their popularity is over and people don't want to hear about it, the majority of the people in certain spaces want them gone. And that's how it's going to be. If you don't like it, you can go to a less governed space like 4chan or try and start up your own, as long as you can afford to like moderate all the illicit content, make sure righties don't post like threats of genocide and or lefties, even either or. Starting these communities is incredibly difficult. So whatever it is, if you want to have it, you can go start it, but you've got to compete with someone who already guarantees you're not going to run into CP or death threats on their platform.
Okay, Demonmama.
It's funny that you bring up the Donald. I think that's one of the greatest examples of a subreddit that overstayed its welcome. In fact, like Reddit was so reluctant to censor. And they engaged in my opinion, and I don't think they're a perfect company, but I think they engaged with regard to censorship in incredibly good faith. The Donald is so bad. It is so bad. I have streams of us going over the Donald and just seeing thousands of upvotes on posts that are just explicitly advocating for the assassination of specific political opponents of Donald Trump. This was all over the place, and Reddit took forever to do it. So the idea that like the right is being like super persecuted online is the opposite is true, that they've been given like an unbelievable amount of leeway. And I don't know. I agree that there are issues with the overall conversation of how do we moderate content? How do we manage the fact that we live in an age where there's like all these strange social spheres? But like the claims of the exaggerated victimhood claims are just not realistic. They're not realistic. Donald Trump and basically everyone associated with Donald Trump were some of the worst actors we've seen on the internet, and they moved as a whole because they were directed by Donald Trump and they worshiped him as, what do they say on the Donald? Geodis, God Emperor of the United States. Damn, that's a pretty serious problem. And I think that we've thoroughly shown that the problems that Donald Trump represents online are significantly more than the problems that are generated from him being banned off of one or two platforms.
Okay, we're going to throw it over to CTV.
Mute, buddy.
Yeah, whereby. Gotta fuck things up on the last one, I guess, right? So,
wait, can I just say something quick? Look, everybody already knows I'm going through a lot right now. So apparently me, and I'm just going to say this publicly, I have lost all ability to reason about what is a good or not good thing to say. So apparently, I just tell somebody to not restream my content, and so now she, as Comment Chick, is going through all my old streams that she's ever been on and flagging it for her being on there. So I didn't even submit a report. I just said stop doing it, or maybe I will have to. Okay, got it.
Stop being an asshole.
Wow.
I mean, wonderful.
Yeah.
Great. Okay. You know what? Maybe I wish the septic shock took me so I wouldn't have to deal with her. Okay. Sorry, CTV.
Yeah, buddy.
Hey.
All right, so I guess I'll
So
take it after. I'll take it after that. Sure. Why the fuck wouldn't I take it after that? Right. So no comment, chick. Quit acting like what we all know you are. Right. We all know you are. I've called you out on hippy dippies before, so we all know what you are. Quit acting that way, right? Maybe elevate yourself, like I suggested before, right, to a higher plane of thinking. It doesn't have you acting like this, right? So, with regard to the topic, there's always going to be moderation, right? Everybody agrees there's always going to be moderation. I agree that in all things, there's always some type of moderation. The only thing that matters is what level, right? So with regard to Twitter and Facebook and all these other platforms, the ideal situation for me is one where the platform itself is not being held legally liable for the things that other people are putting on there, right? And at the same time, them not be the ones that are moderating that. We need the individuals and the communities themselves to be moderating those types of things between people. Now, obviously, right, the platform itself can have reporting and stuff like that to help communities be able to work together with the platform. But that's not to say that the platform itself needs to say, okay, well, now we're going to have these vague TOS rules, and then we're going to pick and choose the moderation that we're going to do. And that's where ultimately you end up having a problem, is because there's not a consistency of the moderation. And I think that more people would be able to respect what was going on if there was more consistency with the moderation. So it seems clear to me that the only way moving forward is just to remove any type of legal liability from the platforms so that they're not held responsible, while at the same time, the user interfaces of the platforms get better as far as for individual moderation. And then that's how you're ultimately going to be able to blossom better communities over time, is with more freedom and more control at the individual level.
Can't hear you, bud.
Muted. Eris, sorry.
Hey, okay, I have the exact opposite perspective. I think we need to do more control. I think TOS is just there to make these companies look good to their advertisers, and they rarely actually act upon them. Though I do agree with you, CTV, that they're not consistent in the way they act on it. I mean, the fact that Dusty would get banned for something that someone else did, but then we could all watch someone, just give death threats, threaten to dox people and all that stuff, live on Twitch, and there's nothing that was done in response to that. It's just like, I think in general, platforms need to be way more consistent and way more strict. There's a huge problem, number one, with misinformation that gets spread, especially with COVID. I mean, if anyone's on Facebook, there's so much misinformation that's being spread, and Donald Trump was one of like the prime people doing this. And there's a ton of people. I mean, there's people on the left who spread misinformation too. I have seen the Young Turks, and I'm gonna piss off some people. I've seen the Young Turks just put out outright lies, and never try to repeat it. And they never come back afterwards and say, "Oh, sorry, we made a mistake there." Something. They just get away with doing that too. There's just tons of misinformation being spread, and I really think we need to get past this idea that lying is free speech. Obviously, when it comes to certain things, there's there's gray areas of what the truth is. Okay, but I'm talking about, there are some things that people can just say that are just outright lies, and there needs to be consequences to that. There's also a huge pandemic right now, an epidemic of child abuse material and child pornography on the internet. It's increased by, I think, 800% in the last 5 years. And no one is taking it seriously. Actually, Facebook, of all the platforms, ironically, it's only Facebook that even tracks how often child abuse material is spread on their site. No one else is tracking it. So, there is just in general, we need to be pushing these platforms to be more responsible with what they allow on there. So I'm totally fine with this ban. I just think that I just wish they would apply it more equally.
Okay. Next, we're going to throw it over to Maddie, then Counter, then we'll go on to the next topic.
Yep. So I think it is a good thing that deplatformed, just as it was a good thing for Milo, insert last name here, to also be deplatformed, as well as the Donald, for it to be removed from Reddit. I think at the end of the day, these companies are here to make money and be risk averse, especially when it comes to their advertisers, since that is their primary source of income. So they are well within their rights to deplatform or moderate content as they see fit. Ultimately, I also think that from an ethical and moral standpoint, it is a good thing to remove hateful rhetoric from those platforms, especially when it was that rhetoric that led to an insurrection on January 6th. And I do think it's I'm so glad that Connor brought up the fairness doctrine, because this is something that I feel so strongly about, because I think there is a real need for the reintroduction of a fairness doctrine that is crafted specifically for digital media in mind. And I think that would do a lot to combat the spreading of deliberate misinformation. But yeah, Trump can fuck off on Facebook. All of our aunts and uncles that still post dumbass memes will still be there. So it won't change that much.
Okay, and I'm going to throw it over to Counter.
Yeah, so American Nacho, I think the first progressive Republican was Teddy Roosevelt, who is somebody who I actually try to emulate. So he's a Republican. I don't think anybody would argue that he was left wing, but he cared about the environment. He cared about American power. He cared about balance of power. He cared about the power of individuals. And he also cared about basically balancing economic power. He was one of the largest trust busters that we have had in American history. So basically what I would say is, just because the government, oftentimes Republicans are skeptical of big government, or libertarians are at least, just because you're skeptical of government doesn't mean corporations are your friend, and vice versa. So what I would say is that we should be skeptical of power no matter where it comes from. And just because we agree, if we move to the town square, I think it opens up a whole bunch of problematic things that I alluded to earlier. I do not want law enforcement officers coming to my home to speak with my son because he basically do you guys teabagged? I don't know if anybody's going to be playing Halo in the next 20 years, but because he teabagged, talked some shit about somebody's mom, and said that he was going to kill him, I don't want that Xbox Live message to be flagged and then for cops to come to my house and talk to my son. I would rather that he just takes a ban. I talk to him about profane language on the internet, and then both him and I, after a week ban, because I'm probably banned for profane language on the internet, we both get lifted from our bans and get to go play video games together again. Yield.
Okay, so we're going to go on to the next topic, which is going to be India. India has been going through a lot right now when it comes to COVID, a lot of COVID deaths, a huge spike in COVID cases. So this has come into a kind of clash of two worldviews. One worldview thinking, well, we need to basically America first, American first worldview, like we don't need to worry about what's going on in India. Americans first, that's what the American government's job is. And another worldview of we should be helping the nation of India recover. We should be sending PPE, waiving patent protections, all that. So the question is, should we be helping India? I'm going to start in the top left-hand corner with DrHeemedOut.
Man, when Danabo sent me the list of topics, I started rubbing my hands together when I saw this one. I've literally spent the last 2 weeks on my stream talking about this, debating people about this, and I'm gonna have the unpopular position. And Demonmama, I see you pointing at me. I'm gonna have the unpopular position that I'm not sure that waiving the IP is necessarily gonna accomplish anything, and I'll get further into it later. However, I do think that it comes an ethical question. Like, for example, I'm from Canada. Canada was one of the first countries to put in purchase orders before Pfizer, Moderna even finished their clinical trials. Canada put in orders because they knew they don't have the vaccination facility to vaccinate their people. Now, what happened is, although we were first and we were like, yeah, we can vaccinate everyone 7 times over, what ended up happening is the corporations decided not to fulfill those orders. Now, I work at a hospital here, and I still don't have my second dose. And I know that there's Americans all over America, regular Americans that are 10 years old, not 10, 15, whatever, 20 years old, who have had their second dose. So, but I sympathize with the fact that we shouldn't go by who ordered it first. You should probably go by who needs it most. So in that case, I definitely think that India should get helped out as much as possible. However, I just don't see the waiving of the IP as a solution to helping them. Every single scenario in which a factory or facility has been up to par when it comes to production capabilities, they have gotten licenses from these companies. For example, in India right now, AstraZeneca is already producing vaccines. So it doesn't make sense to me why these companies wouldn't want to get a massive market share in India, for example, that has the second biggest population in the world, by licensing out their formulas when they know that the vaccine can be produced efficaciously and effectively. Now, the other question is, let's say you waive the IP, but you don't have regulations, or you don't have a check on the production facility. What you have to end up doing is every batch that gets made in every country in the world, you're going to have to do animal testing, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 human trials, and that is going to take a long time. It's probably just a better idea to make sure the production facilities around the world are up to par, and then you just license out the formula. Bill Gates warned us about this shit 6 fucking years ago. And I know that the cool thing to do right now is to hate on Bill Gates, but literally Bill Gates has the most experience in global health in the entire world when it comes to facilitating moving of vaccines to underprivileged countries and So I don't know. Everybody loves to hate Bill Gates, but I don't see it here.
Okay, next is going to be Nacho.
Yeah. So looking into this just gave me more and more questions. So maybe me and Dr. Heem can talk more about this since you've been talking about it a lot more. My knee-jerk reaction, of course, when I started my investigation into this topic was obviously America first. You know, I got to be the typical righty and just be like, yeah, screw them all, America first. But then I look at more and more into like our relations with India, and I can't help but think that this is a really good opportunity for us to sort of invest in India and in that relationship with them. And looking back on the history of our relationship with India, it seems like one of our more valuable and probably more underrated relationships with other countries. So, I mean, I would be all for supporting them, like helping them make vaccines. I mean, it's mutually beneficial from more than one side. I mean, you also don't want, they're having some of the first mutations of this that are really spreading fast, and it could come back and bite us in the ass. So if not anything else, at the very least that we want to avoid that, and then just the fact that we want to invest in one of the largest democracies that exists on the planet. I say democracy loosely, but I mean they want to be a democracy. They're a developing nation, and I think this could really come in clutch for us in the future if we really had India on our side. So that's my position.
Okay, next is going to be Shaved.
I think who looks into the situation that's happening in India find it like really gut wrenching. It's like absolutely abhorrent seeing the fields of burning bodies and like just imagining the awful smell of like having to deal with this and working around them. And it's not just like a part of their their religious practices. Like they're having to do this. It's not like they are just choosing to. I think that if this is actually a complicated topic as like a more libertarian or even like an anarchist or anti-statist, but like I think that U.S. hegemony is pretty all right, and that if we can like help India, and like not like ignoring the fact that we should do it out of like a humanitarian principle, I think that helping India, especially in this time of competition with other global powers, would help continue and sustain U.S. hegemony around the world. Even if like I would prefer eventually a world without that. I think right now it might be a good thing. I also, Dr. Heem, not sold on just suspending IP protections. As someone who really hates intellectual property law and thinks it's pretty gosh darn cringe, I don't know about just like picking and choosing when we're going to enforce it. Elon Musk said it really, really well a couple of years ago when he was asked like, why don't you patent your rockets or like any of your rocket technology? And his response was, well, our competitors are other world governments, so the enforceability of those patents is pretty suspect. I think that we can achieve like the same amount of like humanitarian effect or a greater one by just, like you said, licensing it anyway, perhaps at a better cost, or like securing some kind of agreement with them for a future relationship. Yeah, I think we should help them. And in the future, I think last night I had a discussion with someone. They're like, well, in the future, there'll be a labor market and a consumer market for us as well, if we want that. So,
okay, next is going to be Demonmama.
Hit me, Demonmama. Let's go.
I'm so ready. Listen, okay, Dr. Heemed, I love you, but if there's one group of people in the world who are louder than the people who don't like Bill Gates, it's the people who like Bill Gates.
No, come on.
Oh, come on. This is 100. I'm sorry. I know this is my opening statement, but like the fact that you are like surrounded by a bunch of online lefties and then you're like, that's everybody. When Bill Gates literally has a massive charity that spends millions of dollars plastering his name over everything. Now this guy's got it. He doesn't need another person to defend his poor feelings.
So listen, I'm not a Bill Gates like stan.
Yeah. But on this
okay, sorry, go ahead. It's your opening.
I got you. Don't worry. I know you're not like a Bill Gates stan. I'm busting your chops a little bit, but I do think that a lot of people, because Bill Gates has like a vested interest in this, he claims expertise that he sort of generated himself. Like Bill Gates has claimed expertise on a lot of things. People think that Bill Gates invented Windows. He didn't. He had a team of people that did it, and he happened to own the rights at the end of it. Like, come on. Like, the problem is that IP law is not the way to ensure safe production. In fact, it arguably puts us in a worse condition, because right now the way the way that it is right now is companies that can't afford to immediately make a deal with these corporations, often, I'm sure to great expense, are in a position where they can't move forward. If you release the patent, that means that you can start moving forward with those pre-made safe standards, with the standards for manufacturing. And I will even go one further, because I advocate that the United States should refuse to uphold those patents and those intellectual properties, and should publish for the world manufacturing investigation or inspection standards, and their own recipes for a universal vaccine as information comes out. I think that would be amazing. Keep in mind, and I know you know this because I know you work in medicine, the number one thing that we need to do is get as many people vaccinated as safely and as quickly as possible. Yeah. So it is in our interest to not buy into the very, very biased perspective of people who are very interested in allowing corporations to control basically everything, but specifically medicine. We shouldn't just assume that they're coming from a place of good faith. Bill Gates has his own agenda. He has his own interests. He's very much a corporatist. He very much believes in preserving corporate hegemony, corporate sovereignty over their IPs. But this is not an issue of IPs or of money. This is a world that we could end up with a disease that circles around for years. We just need to put that aside, and we need to take proactive action instead of constantly being on the back foot. And we've been on the back foot for a year in this. So that's my statement.
So I'm gonna do something, and I never do this because I have the integrity of the hippy dippy roundtable means a lot to me. But since it might be the last one, because again, I hate everybody, I'm gonna throw a grenade in here. I'm gonna allow somebody on here. Okay, I'm gonna allow somebody on here. I don't usually do this because it kind of messes up the balance a little bit, but why not? Okay, got it. Next is gonna be CTV, and I need to use the bathroom.
He's going to make me come up to Baltimore, isn't
he? DTV?
Dylan, can you check your DMs?
Okay, can everybody hear me? Or
yeah. Oh, okay, I can hear you.
Got it.
Yep. Yeah. I'm waiting on everybody else to, understand that I'm supposed to have the floor right now. Something about DMs. I don't know. So we're sitting there talking about, what are we talking about?
India COVID vaccine.
Oh, yes. India. Right. So I think that that American homogeny, right? Is it homogeny?
Hegemony.
Hegemony. Yo, hegemony, right?
Hegemony.
Right. Hegemony.
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 Hermione.
Like that dog money, right? That dog money. Anyone? Nobody else? All right. So I think that, frankly, us helping India is an outstanding thing for us to do. And I'm not even, frankly, against helping India first. I don't even think I'm necessarily against that. I think that there's large bits of manufacturing that's got to get done. I think there's probably is still a substantial portion of the American population that sees the vaccine as potentially maybe not wanting to participate, might find it a little suspect, right? So, instead of, say, holding on to a supply that people might not be using, then, obviously we should be pushing that out and getting more people around the world participating if they wish, right? But beyond that, I think that having the relationship with India is a good thing, as ShavedDog alluded to the conversation that he and I had, is that 1.6 billion people is an obvious market there, and having relationships with that country just for the market capabilities, for potential labor, business investments, all of these things are great, especially when you have a player on the stage like China that has the population densities that they have, and they have a announced goal of being the global power by 2050, right? So at the end of the day, especially when it comes to economics and money, population and market size are, is a very real thing to consider. And, India just has a shit ton of people, right? So, that's a good thing. And I think we should help them out.
Okay. Quick thing. Now, this is a 9-person panel, I guess, now. Again, it's the last one, so I'm dropping all standards. But so just to be clear for everybody, if it's 9-person, that means it's going to be more difficult for me to moderate. And I already am leaving septic shock, so let's all acknowledge that a little bit and do our best to follow the rules, okay? Destiny, I don't need to explain the normal rules to you. You're used to them, right? You know the rules?
Just don't shout over other people?
Just basically, like, if I speak up, I'm just moderating, get quiet, basically. Right?
Okay.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Okay. So we're going to keep going around the room. So next it's going to be, who hasn't, sorry, the cameras all just changed. So who hasn't spoken yet? Can you raise your hand?
Eris too, I think.
Okay, so we're going to go Maddie, CounterPoints, Eris, then Destiny, okay? Maddie, you're first. And let's try to make these intro statements a little shorter because we're running short on time. Oh, I'm muted. Great statement.
Shit, mother. Okay. Hi. So I think that it would be both morally, ethically, and just, I think it's a good idea for the United States to provide more support in the way of not only opening up IP of the vaccines, but also helping to provide some of the raw materials that are required in order to produce the vaccines, because that actually is one of the biggest blockers worldwide in ramping up production. And it's a little tough to think about if you're a worker in India and you are helping to manufacture the AstraZeneca vaccine or something else, knowing that all of that is then going to be exported out of your country, despite your country suffering and having countless people die because they don't have access. I think that is an area where the United States can be a leader and go in and help the Indian government more widely distribute vaccines. That's also a way we can help them more widely manufacture vaccines. And especially with the increased influence of the Chinese government internationally, this is a great place for us to emerge as a leader and build that relationship, because that's something we're going to have to pay closer attention to going forward.
Okay, next is going to be Eris.
Hey, so just in general, I mean, to my knowledge, there is a vaccine surplus, but I'm not too educated on like the ins and outs and like pragmatically on getting the vaccines to India. But in regards to helping out India, like I'm pretty right wing when it comes to immigration. And if anyone here is like, against illegal immigration, so I should have said illegal immigration, then you would be very concerned in general with issues that are going on globally. And and this issue in India is going to cause so many other problems, and it's going to just cause like a domino effect of, what's going on around the world. And it's just going to lead to more, refugees, illegal immigration, and just tons of other problems around the world. So it just makes sense to try to help India as much as possible, especially considering the amazing position the U.S. is in, because, so many Americans don't even want vaccines. So, why not, try to help out other people? Yeah, that's it.
Okay, next is Connor.
Yeah, everybody said the same thing. So I'm going to say, Dylan, if you end the hippy dippy, I am going to come up there and I'm either going to show you a really good time or a really bad time, depending on what we end up doing. So that's pretty much half my statement. The other half of the statement is basically like, yes, when you're on an airplane and the oxygen cuts out or whatever, you're supposed to put the mask on yourself before you help other people. So America first instincts right there. However, that being said, you're also supposed to put oxygen on other people so they don't get fucked over. There's a whole bunch of regional and geopolitical reasons to do this. China is a competitor using India to offset, creating a strong alliance. India is technically another colony from the UK or the Anglosphere. So we share languages, some cultural traditions, some governmental traditions. There's a whole host of reasons to help out our good buddies India. And I'll yield right there.
Okay, now it's going to. Oh, and again, it's not like I want to end Hippy Dippy. I love the format. I love the show. I just hate all of the people involved. That's all.
Okay, well, I love you. Is that not enough?
No, it is not. We're gonna throw
Okay,
it over
well,
to
Destiny loves you enough to be here. Is that not enough?
No, it does not, because he did have an opportunity to come here, and he did this. He chose the other show instead of this show. He did have an opportunity.
Destiny's a bad
and now he's
boyfriend.
asking last second, like always.
I didn't know the other
This
show
ain't
was
the
gonna
prime
go through.
times royale, okay? You can't just come in and come out like anywhere. We're not like a fucking bar, not like a fucking open whorehouse where you can just come in at any time, okay?
Okay, Dylan, you know damn well that the abusive relationships sometimes have the better sex. So Destiny is just priming you metaphorically, not literally, for just like an abusive emotional relationship. So you know the sex is going to be better later.
You know what? I don't think he needs to prime me for that. I already have that with all my panel guests, okay? I'm going to throw it over to Destiny now.
Okay, what is the exact question so that I know, because I hear a lot of
the exact question was should we help India? It's a question of America first versus the international, but it's basically just swerved over to the patent thing immediately.
Okay, yeah, because there are two fundamentally different questions. I think that we should help India in any way, size, shape, or form. But I think that the patent conversation and then like people obsessing over like Bill Gates' answer to it, I think is a massive red herring. Like even if we did release not only the patent but all the other parallel technologies, it would take them years to get up to speed. The patents themselves won't help them with anything. They don't have the manufacturing capacity or capability to make these vaccines. And the biggest issue is that if we found a way to get through all of the technology, all of the manufacturing errors, all of the transfer of like actual knowledge for producing these vaccines, if we found a way to do all of that, if any part of that process was messed up and there was any issue with any of these vaccines, you would continue to fervor like this really rabid anti-vax like idea that has like taken over the world, where people are like canceling vaccines because of like minor problems and stuff, and that would just like exacerbate that issue as well. So yes, we should be helping India in any possible way we can, whether that means subsidizing or paying for vaccines that we're sending over or whatever. But the patent question is like a really big red herring. I don't think it's like really relevant to this conversation at all.
Okay, so again, there's 9 people here, so I'm gonna be a little like, I don't know, a little like dictator over here, okay? Little Francisco Franco, a little Tito, a little something, okay? So I need you all to please follow the rules. Now it is open to the floor, but he raised his hand out first, so I'm just gonna pass it to him.
All right. Okay. So just a couple of things to respond to. Maddie, you said that, and this isn't just you. I'm not just trying to pick on you. I also saw many people on Twitter saying this as well. That how do you think the people in India feel when they're making life-saving medication and exporting it across the world? That is not happening anymore. They've stopped exporting. Okay, they're completely using everything domestically now, and the manufacturing CEO, the CEO of the manufacturing plant, he said we used exports as a source of generating revenue so that we can continue to expand our manufacturing. As they just don't have the money to be able to expand their manufacturing fast enough to be able to ramp up production. So it's kind of like a balancing thing where it's not necessarily bad to export because it's a fantastic form of raising revenue. So that's the first thing. The second thing, to piggyback off of what Destiny said, this has been one of my major concerns as someone who is in so my field of study is in radiation physics and radiation protection in particular. I have been trained to think of the worst case scenario. What Destiny brought up is the worst case scenario. If one of these vaccines, a batch of them, let's say, God forbid, kills 1,000 people or something, you can literally set back the entire vaccination movement by decades. We're at a point where, because the vaccine issue is such a hot topic right now, it's very important that things are done carefully, that safety corners are not cut. And again, to just go back to what I was saying before, it seems to be the case that when manufacturing facilities are up to par, these corporations license it out, because obviously there's a competition. Obviously the Moderna, J&J, Pfizer, all of these corporations want to be the first ones in India, want to dominate the market share. So it's not as though they're like, no, we're too good. We don't want to help poor people, which is the narrative that I've been seeing a lot of, that, oh, these companies don't want to help poor people. I've even seen lefties saying that it's for population control. Like, we need to this is turning into blue anon shit. So yeah, I think it's really
okay, but you don't
when
need
did
to
lefties
straw
listen to
man.
Alex Jones?
You don't need to straw man. First of all, I've never seen it. Like, I've never seen a single lefty argue that like it's because they're trying to do population control. I'm sure there's probably some of them, but nobody on this panel has done it. So I don't think we need to like.
Okay, nobody on this panel. Okay, nobody on this panel. Yeah. But
no serious commentator or someone.
I might have
That would be someone. If someone were making that argument, they'd be totally unserious.
Okay. We're gonna you're gonna give you about 30 seconds to finish it, and then it's gonna go somewhere else.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, basically, I think it's crazy that some people are saying that, oh, how can we trust these corporations? We should let governments all over the world set their own safety standards. I think this is absolutely ridiculous. I think Western scientific safety standards are fucking the best in the world, and I am not willing to cut any sort of corners that to potentially cause a catastrophe.
Nobody said anything about cutting safety.
Well, when you
procedures.
when you get rid of
no, hold on. You had your turn. Now it's my turn. So. When you say you're conflating multiple issues in order to, I don't know, it feels like you're kind of like rooted in on this particular like the Bill Gates thing. I don't know, like this is the thing. We had a little back and forth about that. I recognize the question is much broader. I do think that the IP question is probably not the most important part of all this.
But
however,
it's turned into the main discussion.
Well, that's
I think that's the point.
That's you though. And now what you're doing in this particular part is you've merged two different concerns, which is safety standards. Nobody has ever advocated for safety standards. In fact, I explicitly advocated that what we should do is we should choose to be the leaders on this, and we should publish the most accurate and up to date, regardless of any IP concerns, the most safest manufacturing, the most safest inspection procedures, and we should give that to other countries. Now, the concern I do have with IP enforcement being an issue is that while I agree that corporations do want to distribute their vaccine, they do want to go into countries because they can make money.
Of course,
that introduces a major profit incentive that we don't have to deal with if you waive the IP and you say this is a global emergency. We're not going to enforce you being able to sue another country. And I want to bring in another thing, a historical example that we have in the past. You say that somehow, I don't know how you've tied these two things together, that waiving the IP protections for it would somehow undermine people's faith in vaccines. No, that's not true at all.
No, that's not what I said. That's not what I said. Come on, no. Come on. I said if there was,
you can't run the respect your luck.
Okay, so I'll give Heemed 10 seconds to clarify what he meant. Then
Demonmama, I specifically said if you waive the IP and a catastrophe happens where a batch of vaccines is unsafely made. I didn't say waiving the IP alone. Of course, if you waive the IP and the vaccines are flawless, nothing would happen.
The IP is irrelevant to that discussion. If a disaster happens, as we've already seen, guess what? IP law was enforced when the J&J disaster happened, and I can tell you firsthand, right down the street from me, there are copies upon copies of the Epic Times with their, the J&J vaccine is killing people. That is a problem that is separate from IP. It has jack shit to do with IP. IP has nothing to do with manufacturing disasters. In fact, but I will say that there are some ways in which the IP could impede us avoiding manufacturing disasters, but I don't think the IP has anything to do with manufacturing disasters. Manufacturing disasters are going to be used by bad actors all over the place. In fact, that's why we should commit, as the United States is one of the most powerful and most advanced medical countries in the entire world, that we should commit to making sure that no disasters happen, regardless of what that means, even if it has nothing to do with IP or else. But the problem is that as it stands right now, part of the problem that we're encountering, hence why Joe Biden considered to waive the IP, is that people can't start working on manufacturing these things when they're at risk of being sued. Now you can have that happen. Do you want to know what would be? Do you want to know what would be worse of a disaster if we have what happened during the Spanish flu, which is that vaccine shortages and medicine shortages during that time were so rare that you had random doctors brewing up their own vaccines completely illegally and under the table. I would rather have it above the table and just not have corporations being able to strong arm their own influence over other countries. And that would be infinitely better. Now,
real quick on that. So Moderna already said they weren't going
Maddie,
to.
I wrote your name down. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. So real quick. So we're talking about exporting safety standards to other countries. We're not exporting like how to make the perfect like Wendy's square cheeseburger.
Exactly.
You can't just export these things. There's like only so many people in the world that even know how to operate these machines, that only so many companies in the world can even manufacture. And there are like shortages of this talent even within these companies. Like even Moderna needs more of these people to do it. So the idea that we can just like undo a patent, I don't need you to say okay after everything I say. I know I'm correct. I don't need you to reaffirm it. I don't know why you keep saying okay after everything. So the idea that like you can,
just
I'm sorry, I'm
wondering
not done. You had your turn. I'm just talking. So the idea, well, the point is that you specifically said we should export safety standards to other countries. You can't do that. I'm telling you that you have a fundamental misunderstanding of how this technology works and how it's applied, because we can't just export the safety standards to other countries. This isn't just a matter of intellectual property. It's a matter of human capital. It's a matter of like the actual know-how to operate these manufacturing plants and these machines. It's like some of the processes for this are incredibly complicated, and you can't just say like, oh, well, here you go. Now you have the technology, go and do it. If that was true, everybody around the world would be making the Moderna vaccine. They're not. The patents aren't stopping anybody. Like, in order to file a patent, you already have to disclose how the technology works. Moderna's done that. It's not like there are people out there making the vaccine anyway. The whole patent question is just a giant red herring. All of the manufacturing on these vaccines are moving as quickly as they can, and all of the plants are totally tapped out in the manufacturing as it's happening. And the idea that just because some mistakes have happened so far, if other huge vaccine mistakes were to happen because these were being made in an unsafe manner in another country, becomes irrelevant is absolutely not true either. Just because some mistakes have happened,
that it was irrelevant.
you did. You said that it's
No,
always
I did
going to
not.
be.
I said it was irrelevant to the question of IP.
And
if
it's not.
If you're
And
gonna
it is relevant. It is relevant. It is relevant because if other people
relevant
were
to
to
the
start
question of
making
IP.
these, so you were misleading and saying that, well, there's already been Johnson and Johnson. I'm trying to explain, but you won't shut the fuck up and let me. So you were already saying like, oh, well, down
you're
the
really
street,
already
there.
super mad, aren't you?
Okay. Wait, okay.
Is
I
there any- is
understand.
there like
Wait,
a-
okay. I understand that
Yeah.
you two are dating and going
Well,
out.
I'm
You
just
love each
no,
other.
no.
Wait,
I'm just trying to finish my
give-
point. Yeah.
you got to let me finish, Destiny.
Okay, yeah,
You
go
can't
ahead. Sorry,
complain
my
about
bad.
not letting me finish, then not let me finish.
Yeah, go ahead.
I understand you love each other very, very much. Destiny, you finish what you're saying, then I'll throw it straight over to Demonmama. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't know this was a Destiny dating show. Demonmama, if you want to hop into my DMs after, feel free to. But anyway, so you were saying earlier that like people are already using the propaganda stuff on the Johnson and Johnson. Like this idea that like, well, some very, very minor mistakes have happened, therefore any mistake can be allowed is just absolutely not the case. The transfer of capital needed to make these vaccines won't happen with anything related to do with intellectual property. And if it were to happen, this would be on the scale of years. And as was already correctly stated by you earlier, Demonmama, the most important thing is to vaccinate as many people as possible. That has nothing to do with transferring IP rights.
And also, we can't even. Oh, sorry, can I just say quickly? You're asking government. You're trying to trust governments across the world when we can't even get basic workers' rights across the world to be standardized.
Okay,
so how can you have?
Dima, I'm sorry, but there's a.
Yeah, it's okay. I get it.
Like it's really funny. Like I feel like I'm getting like a bunch of weird and like they're like interswitching between what arguments actually being made. Now, I already agree that that the IP is not the biggest thing standing in the way. However, I think that there is we've already agreed, both Heemed and Destiny in this have admitted that there is a big interest that corporations have in being able to be the ones who get to go in there and manufacture that. I think that waiving the IP brings that out of the question. Okay. So, but originally, of course, the question was not about the IP. And I would say that we should help in any way that we can. I'm not a doctor, but I do believe that there's probably a lot of things that we can do. And I do believe, and I don't agree or accept the idea that like exporting inspection or safety standards wouldn't help at all. In fact, the core of Dr. Heem's argument is that American safety, manufacturing, and expertise is what we need to get everywhere else in the world. So like there's contradicting arguments going on.
It's not a set of OSHA guidelines. I'm sorry.
But I never said that it was. I mean, is that supposed to be like your gotcha?
That's what you're
Like,
making it sound like, oh, it's just
I'm
safety
really not.
Well, the enforcement of those safety standards is important too, right?
Yeah, but how do you start the ball rolling on that? You have to, if you have a process, if our processes for investigating, inspecting, and passing vaccines is so good, then we should certainly be able to give that away to other countries and get them set up.
It's not that great though. Like people were saying the same thing.
Okay.
Wait, but you're making a different argument than Heem. So Heem says that ours is the best, but apparently we can't.
Okay, I'm gonna go back into septic shock real quick. Okay, so Demonmama's gonna finish their point. Then we're gonna go to Maddie. Then we're going to go from there. Okay, wonderful. Demonmama.
My point is that yes, we should help India in any way imaginable. Sure, I don't think the IP is the most important thing. I do think that there are ways in which the IP rules can be can perhaps hinder this. I don't believe that we should have IP and profit incentives stand in the way of our response to this pandemic. It already has enough, and it's had disastrous consequences. And yeah, there's a whole lot of other parts of this that we could discuss if we want to. So yeah, that's my point.
Okay. Maddie, we're gonna go to you. Nacho, I saw you raise your hand, and I saw CounterPoint raise their hand, but okay, got it, Maddie.
Great. So I think we're getting caught up on this idea of the plausibility of, oh, well, even if they release the patent, is that even going to change anything? Is that going to mean that this vaccine can go into production? And I wanted to just quickly point out that there are plenty of vaccines and medications that are made by generic pharmaceutical manufacturers that are safe and effective and normally have a much better cost benefit analysis as well. Like that's why they're way cheaper, because they don't come with the brand name that also has marketing and other things that are baked into that price tag. So I think it's important to remember that this isn't something that's new. This is something that happens routinely with vaccines, with medications.
mRNA vaccines are
that
brand new.
I'm not done. No. You can have your turn. I waited throughout all of that. So this is something that's happened. Another thing that I think is really important to point out is that there were taxpayer dollars used in the development of these vaccines. So I don't know that it's necessarily the right call to then have all of the proceeds and profit coming from those vaccines going to private manufacturers, because that's another thing that we have to consider, especially as those manufacturers ramp up worldwide distribution. And then lastly, despite thinking, my position is that I think the vaccine patent should be released and made open to other manufacturers. However, I think we won't see any meaningful change in the vaccine distribution worldwide, especially in developing countries, until there's the question of equitable distribution and what that might look like. So even if we were to ramp up production, that doesn't always necessarily translate into equitable distribution. And that, I think, is going to have a much greater impact on making sure that we get the world vaccinated.
Okay, we're going to go over now to Nacho. That's a great point, Nacho. I just wish I could hear it.
So I was just pointing out, basically, reiterating some things and just adding, like, we already asked this question, like, why aren't all pharmaceutical companies like producing vaccines? Is because it's a very stringent process. Like, we're already basically at our capacity for like how many vaccines we can produce. So like, in order for us to do this in other places, and even if we lifted the patent, we would then have to bring people over there away from the facilities where they're already manufacturing these things at capacity. Everybody's being worked to the bone, like already working as much as they possibly can. So moving this somewhere else, taking people away who are already maximizing the process here, and potentially for the rest of the world, would just slow down that process. So it doesn't really make sense. I mean, like, I'm all for helping India, but I just think that we already have an excess of vaccination. So it would probably make more sense for us to keep producing excess and ship them over there. I mean, I don't know.
Okay, next is going to be Counter. And then we're going to probably try to drop the hand raising, but I saw two people raise their hands. So I'm going to go to CTV because he hasn't spoken forever. And
yeah, so I understand. Basically, maybe I could get some clarification here. This is more posed as a question than a challenge. So I actually had to look up like a historical example, which was the polio vaccine was left unpatented. It was given away for free. The person who created it basically said that it was better for the world to have it than for everybody to not have it. And I understand that they're basically like, maybe we're at capacity for qualified manufacturers of vaccines right now. But at the same time, one of the things that's been repeated previously throughout this entire pandemic was that this is going to be with us for decades to come. COVID is very potentially going to be similar to the flu, where we're going to have like annual COVID seasons. It'll kill less people, but it will be around going forward. And so that's kind of my thing, where maybe in the short term releasing IP doesn't make sense, but maybe in the long term it does. And maybe building up the capacities of foreign nations is going to have geopolitical effects. So for instance, if we export this technology to India and then they sell it to China and then they sell it to Europe and like all that kind of stuff, there's going to be a whole bunch of geopolitical leverage that we lose. But there's also a whole bunch of geopolitical leverage that we gain by being selfless with our intellectual property. So I wanted to pose that more as a question than a challenge, is what do we lose by opening this up to the world, with the understanding that if you manufacture this shit yourself and you kill your own citizens, that's kind of on you. We just gave you the patents, the ideas, and the standards that we follow.
okay. I'm gonna give it the CTV and then Destiny, and then we're dropping hand raising it back to open format.
Okay, so Demonmama, the reason why you can't just have like, you know, these federal government rules be able to, if you do this right here, exactly like this, we're going to ship the idea out for you to be able to do the exact same, right? It doesn't work. It doesn't work from a practical example that I'm about to give you. I served on 3 of the same class of submarine, and all of them had shit that was a little bit different about all of them. So imagine trying to set up a business, even though you're going to be manufacturing one thing in an area that doesn't have the same resources in the area, doesn't have the same, say, electrical supply, doesn't have the building materials, it doesn't have all the same things. So this, like, you have this one, this is how you do this. But then when you get down on the field and you try to do it, this is why shipping that idea just doesn't work. This is where, like, you can have some guidelines, but doing it from there, it just doesn't work, right? So for the rest of it, I'm kind of lost now. So Destiny, kick it off.
Okay, 1 second though. For everybody in chat, tell me to call on this person or that person. I know how to do my job. Please sit in your seat. Okay, Destiny, continue.
Just for a couple things that were brought up. So manufacturing generics is something that companies can do. A cutting edge, brand new technology. So these are some of the first mRNA vaccines in the world that have been produced. The way that we manufacture these is not like a well understood science such that everybody in the world is ready to just switch over and do it. So we can't just make generic versions of these vaccines like we could like with other drugs. It is a very new technology. In terms of like tax dollars have gone into manufacturing these, like different companies have taken like different levels of money at different stages of like distribution, but like most of the research and development for this has all been like fronted by capital like from private companies. The idea that it's like been a whole bunch of public research or whatever that's gone into developing these vaccines is not necessarily true. When people are talking about like what's the harm in releasing like the IPs or all the technology related to this, I mean, technically, if you do it right, there's not really a harm, but there would need to be like an enormous cash transfer that happens to these companies if that happens, because pharmaceuticals are a very, very, very risky business. And if we were to just go in and when somebody stumbles upon like a really effective treatment to just completely deprive them of the ability to make money for that, you are like putting potentially like a huge harm in the way of the pharmaceutical industry. And like the public-private partnership that happens with pharmaceuticals is probably one of the best examples we have of like public-private partnership, and we probably wouldn't want to harm that type of innovation that occurs in the US.
Can I respond as well? Okay, so also I just I looked this up because a lot of people were saying, why can't we just publicly fund vaccine and medicines and all this shit? Only 1 out of 1,000 drugs actually make it to market. I don't think that we want to waste our taxpayer money on 999 failed projects to get one successful one. It's better that private capital goes. I don't know why you're making that face, Demonmama. This is a fact.
I mean, wait, that's silly. You're saying that we shouldn't that we should take advantage of private capital, which makes a lot of money, but despite the fact that
because they can, they can take tons of risks. They can afford to lose.
Heemed, you asked her a question. Let her ask the question.
I mean, Heemed, look, I understand. Like, I don't know. Like, we can talk about this another time.
Yeah,
too.
we have
like,
to talk one-on-one.
It feels like you're super mad like about it, and I don't really entirely get it because like.
Wait, hold on. What did Heemed say that was super mad? Just respond to his point.
I just said one. I don't think it makes.
Okay.
You're doing it again.
Okay, well, let me. Okay, I don't care what you're gonna do off here. Please ask the question.
Yeah. Okay. So my question was,
do you think talking to Demonmama?
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Go ahead. Sorry.
Mama. Okay, there was a question. Like you asked why was she making the face, and then she was answering that, right?
Oh, okay.
Okay. Demonmama.
Sure. I was reacting and was going to wait my turn to respond to you. I don't think that the argument that it takes lots of tries to come up with something, therefore the private industry should do it. In fact, no. Like this is part of the problem that we have is that we don't have investment in risky drugs that would be beneficial to society. In fact, they could be so beneficial, it would just be an abstracted value. I think that there's a lot to be talked about with regard to how public-private stuff works. And I don't know, there's a lot of that there. But I think that to sort of respond to all the things we've been talking about here, if we can all admit here that the mRNA vaccines are brand new, that nobody's cutting edge yet. That's all the more reason to remove every single roadblock that we can to getting them all over the world. Vaccinations benefit all of us. So we want to get as many people capable of producing them as quickly as possible. That's what we want. And that goes for any vaccine. Now, I would go further. We're not having this discussion here, but we could any other time about how we go about researching and developing medicines. I disagree with the idea that because there's a lot of trial and error in it, that it's necessarily an unproductive or non-profitable venture. It obviously is. Otherwise, pharmaceuticals wouldn't be billionaires. That's ridiculous. The idea that just because it's high risk means that you can't do it via other structures. There's a million ways to approach this. That doesn't have to be just private. And there are downsides of private of relying exclusively on private investment. For example, rare conditions don't tend to have a whole lot of private investment because those would not be profitable. So there's some issues with that. And I know I could tell you're like, I don't know what you're melting down about.
I'm melting down because you're basically agreeing with me but disagreeing at the same time. You're saying that
you interrupted me to question me. Like, you're the one who's been disagreeing with me. So what it seems like is you disagree with me as a person and not anything that I'm actually advocating.
No, come on. I love you, Demonmama.
Wait, I'm not saying as a whole. I'm saying in the context of this panel. I know you're not an asshole. Like, I'm just saying that you question me. So what do you disagree with me? Then,
okay, so my initial point was that 4,999 drugs never make it past human testing to make it to market. And I think that's a shitty way to use tax money. Tax money should be used in things that we can clearly fucking point to it. Like, there's so many other problems and there's only a limited amount of budget that can be used. So that's all I said. And then when I said that, you made a weird face.
Yeah. So a more formal declaration of this. So something that governments historically have problems with are picking winners and losers. Like, it's a problem with a lot of more public funded models, is that in a private system, capital can respond much more quickly to winning and losing situations. But on a public model, trying to pick out which medications are going to be the winners is not going to be very effective. We might say here oh, well, privately, there's not going to be much incentive to solve for rare diseases. There's probably a greater chance that a rare disease is going to be cured in a private market because some philanthropist makes it their pet project than us voting democratically or having a medical institution that's throwing tons and tons of excuse me. Please let me finish. And no, I'm not just asserting that. This is just common sense for how markets work, right? So what you can make out the dumb hand things you want. Well, so I can explain the actual incentives for you, right?
Sure.
So
please.
publicly, if we are trying to throw money at all of these potential research projects because we're trying to figure out which drugs or potential drugs we want to fund, we're probably not going to be voting to do this for the rarest conditions, right? If we imagine that the majority of us are voting and the majority of us have a stake in how this public funding goes, we're probably actually going to be even more driven towards solving the biggest diseases. So 99% of our money is going to go towards things like diabetes or things related to dementia and Alzheimer's or things that are related to obesity. This is where all of our public funding is going to go. In a private system, you have a higher chance of riskier drugs being explored because somebody thinks there might be some money to be made if they find it, or from some philanthropist picking a pet project and then lending money towards people to go and solve that particular thing.
There's some things that I think that you're correct about in that, and some things that I think you're not correct about. I don't agree with the idea that a public system would necessarily be worse. I think that we don't have the infrastructure for it right now because we've relied on a private system, but a public system absolutely could identify what is needed. Hold on a second. Well, there's a number of ways. First of all, we have other similar structures of this, such as how we handle agriculture, right? People don't vote directly on what agricultural rules and what ecological decisions are made by the EPA.
I want to stop you right now because agriculture is the worst example you could bring up because we actually throw away so much money into ag because we produce farm goods that are just thrown right away. If you look at the whole thing,
we're not talking about the specifics. What I'm talking about
it is literally the example that I would bring up to win my argument. Look at how much money we throw away in agriculture and corn.
You're getting really angry about something.
I'm not angry at all. I'm just helping you with your argument. So go ahead.
I don't need any help because you're not actually.
Because you brought up an example for me.
You're not talking. You're not even touching on the same thing that I'm talking about. It's really weird. It feels really weird. It feels like there's this weird thing where you.
Dylan, can we make a rule where Demonmama can't just talk about how mad people are? Because it's the biggest waste of time.
Okay, let's stop. Okay.
Okay.
If there's any rule I have made is that when I talk, no one else talks. Okay. You hear that? You don't hear anything? That's because all of you in this room, 2 brain cells that are in your head have yet to bang into each other. If they do hit, it's going to sound like a pin dropping, okay? That's the current state I'm in. So, what we're going to do, I'm going to give you both 20 seconds to say something, and we're going to throw it to basically the room. And if it's interesting enough, I'll let it go on. If it isn't, then I'm just going to give it to somebody else, okay? That's how we're doing this. Demonmama got 20 seconds.
Okay, 20 seconds. Yeah, look, there are all kinds of structures, some of them flawed, some of them not. But we can institutionalize these things. They don't have to be voted on directly. They can be done by appointees in other institutions. That's all I'm saying.
All right, I'm gonna jump since you said it would be open to the floor.
Wait,
Oh, can I just?
Oh, sorry, my bad.
Yeah, so I don't know.
There's the brain cell. They forgot to hit
okay,
the
so
other
real quick.
one.
So done by appointees means that it's still ultimately an appointee of a publicly elected figure. If the issue becomes a hot button enough topic, then of course these are going to become like issues that we are going to be indirectly voting on, just like we indirectly vote on like our presidential cabinet and heads of our EPA and all those other things. Agriculture, I just thought that was a funny thing to bring up because it's a good example of how government tries to pick and choose which crops are grown. We see huge issues going on with that in the United States when it comes to throwing away tons of money on corn because it's electorally popular to quote unquote support our farmers. So we like misallocate resources there. You see it happening in India, which we kind of were talking about earlier. In East India, a fuck ton of subsidization goes towards growing rice that's essentially thrown out into the trash can as well. I think that some of these things are just better done on a private model. And I think that like the history shows that.
Okay, elbows thrown.
Okay, yes.
Okay, so this is where I think I can play the enlightened centrist and answer both of your questions simultaneously. That you can marry both of these interests. So I think it's kind of silly to think that the private market doesn't have some advantages and the public market doesn't have some advantages. One of the examples I would bring up is the military-industrial complex. Just like agriculture, it's an example in which billions or potentially trillions of dollars are thrown away on pet projects that don't necessarily yield immediate commercial products or immediate products that are beneficial to the nation, and yet we consistently do it because the public good is viewed as necessary and is so overwhelming that we should have an advanced military that it's worth it to throw billions or trillions of dollars away on this public good because it's just that necessary. I would also argue that agriculture falls into a similar category for this because agriculture is basically food security. If there's one thing that we all fucking need, it's food security, because tomorrow, if basically the grocery stores didn't have any food on the shelves, then I'm pretty sure 70% of the people in this room would starve within 2 weeks to death. So there's advantages to both the public research model, the private research model. The point is to hybridize these things. And I would argue that specifically when we're talking about COVID, COVID is such a public issue that public funding, maybe that large cash transfer to these private corporations, should be done for the benefit of the globe. The faster that we get these things produced, the faster that everybody is inoculated, the faster the global economy opens back up, the faster the global economy opens back up, the more we can go back to work and then basically return to some semblance of normal. Yield.
So I wanted to add in here, this can be my little diet dunk on Destiny, because I think he forgot to mention, like when he said something earlier about the research being publicly funded, like in contest to Demonmama, a lot, if not most of the research that was done on like CRISPR, the RNA, the SARS, and all that stuff was off of like all the research that those companies did individually was off the back of like publicly funded research that was done through like universities, etc. So like we do benefit a lot from the research that we choose to invest in already. So like I don't know what more. I mean, I think it is probably better to have these in the private sector where these they can fine tune all these things, where they can manipulate the CRISPR and the RNA stuff to be able to make something like the Moderna virus. And then also I just wanted to add in from earlier, like, because you were saying something about that this brand new technology should be shared so that everybody can, like, we barely understand this already. So the fact that we would just spread it to other countries and just allow them to like start toying with this virus and try to create and potentially create some like mutant version that would just spread throughout the rest of the planet and fuck us even more is like kind of mind-boggling. I think we want to like keep this under wraps for now, like, and maybe in the future we could look into like sharing.
If I can respond to that specific point, which was responding to mine, like I think that there's an assumption that's being baked in here, which is that like that we're the only ones who know anything about it. We're not. There are skilled, ingenious doctors all over the globe that by opening this up, we may be able to identify. And I'm not saying just like literally take a gun and just fire out incomplete. Like this is, I don't know. I feel like we can't get like an actual like reasonable discussion about it. But what there are scientists all over the world who can contribute to this, who could help make it better. The vaccines could be made better because there's more eyes on it. There's more intelligence. There's entire countries worth of skilled, studied people who could contribute to this. I think that like this is a better approach towards medicine in general. And so I just wanted to respond to that. I'm not saying that like the idea that like America's the only people who could have ever made a breakthrough on any virus or vaccine ever is just not true. In fact, I mean, we're known for doctors coming over and contributing to us from overseas. Like that's a matter of our economic power, not that we're just like by virtue of being born in America, brain geniuses. No, there's lots of smart people all over the place who could contribute to this, and it is a world problem.
So just on top of this, so there's so many misconceptions about how any of this.
Okay,
yeah, there's so many misconceptions about how many. So first of all, this idea that like there are all these people around the world that could contribute, probably not. There were other massive pharmaceutical companies that were trying to get vaccines to work, and people don't realize how many of these other massive pharmaceutical companies failed. The idea that there are all these doctors around the world, and it's like, oh well, if you just show me the machine, you know, like maybe I can chime in with my brilliant piece of code, like I'm in, you know, like some hackers movie or whatever. It's just not the case. Like we already have like the best people in the world that are in the position to work on this are not only working at this, they are working at it at capacity. Also, just to address, I hear this said a lot. AmericanNacho brought this up. A lot of people will say things like the majority of medical research is publicly funded, blah, 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 blah. We do not publicly fund treatments or therapies. That is not true. There is a lot of general research that happens, but taking that general research doesn't help cure you. It doesn't cure you. You don't go to a hospital and get general research. You don't go to a hospital and get like something that, you know, like you need an actual therapy or treatment, and these are privately funded. And the big money sink that comes into funding these goes into all of the trialing that happens to get a drug from the general research ideas and principles that we establish at universities into an actual therapy that we can administer to somebody that has an acceptable number of side effects for an acceptable number of people that actually treats the disease that it purports to treat. And that entire process in the United States, at least, is privately funded, and it is incredibly expensive. It is incredibly arduous. It is incredibly risky. There aren't all these pharmaceuticals that make billions and billions of dollars and blah, 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 blah. You can go and look through the stock histories of any of these companies. You can go and see how many of them start and how many of them fail. The idea that like this is just some incredibly lucrative industry that all these people are becoming billionaires off of is not true. Again, and to reiterate, there are plenty of huge pharmaceuticals that tried to make vaccines for this, and they failed. There are not a ton of people around the world that know how to do this stuff.
Quick question. Are you aware? Wait, quick question. No, it's a very serious question right now. I just have a very quick question.
I just got something.
Are you aware? So was I.
Oh man, that's the smartest thing I heard all day. Nothing. Okay. So, what we're gonna do?
I got something quick. It's quick.
That it will be the smartest thing I heard all day.
It will be. Believe me.
Well, you know what?
Because I wanted to point something out to Nacho.
You got 5 seconds.
So Nacho, a minute ago when you iterated that like the little mini dunk on Destiny,
that was great. Anyway, back over to
that smackdown from the attempted. That's what happened.
No, that's
yeah. Okay,
I'm gonna do something. Very disappointed. Got a 5-minute timeout. I'm sorry, my guy. 5 seconds is 5 seconds, not 8 seconds. What a tragedy. Another conservative censored by the liberal elites. I'll give you a loan to meet you in 5 minutes, okay? Okay, so Demonmama, can you do the 5-second rule, knowing the consequences of the 5-second rule? Okay, 5 seconds.
Destiny or anyone else on the panel, where was the first vaccine successfully developed? Tell me the country. I would love to know.
Russia.
I mean, the U.S./Germany, right?
I think Russia.
That's Germany.
I think
it was
Sputnik.
Germany.
It was Sputnik in Russia.
Well, arguably,
perhaps it was Russia then. But regardless, it wasn't here.
But okay. it was with a partnership.
The idea that we're the only ones with the brains is just so American-centric. It's
not American-centric. The problem is you don't understand supply chain for companies. You think that just because a supply chain is located in another country, that somehow that country owns that intellectual property, or somehow that country is the ownership of the production of the vaccine. You just don't understand the issue of what's being discussed.
That's not true. You're claiming.
So BioNTech works in partnership with Pfizer, and these were the two people that jointly came up with a vaccine. But like BioNTech didn't come up with it themselves. Why did they need Pfizer?
And where are their scientists working, huh? You're saying that this is a supply line problem? It's not a supply line problem. You're talking about research. You're flying all over the place about things that are unrelated. Keep on point.
I mean, if anybody wants to go read my Twitter, I post a lot of stuff from people that know a lot about vaccine manufacturing. You can read about it, but like, it's not a matter of just like flying somebody around and then showing you on the computer what buttons to punch in to get the magical vaccines to pop out.
My Twitter page, please go to my Twitter page.
You mean Destiny's friend?
Okay. So it was Heemed. So
Thank you.
Throw it to Heemed.
Thank you. Okay, so as someone who is currently taking part in public research, I think I understand pretty well the dynamics between public and private research. I am a PhD candidate. I make $4 less than minimum wage. I would never go into becoming a PhD scientist if I didn't know that I'm going to have future earnings as a possibility. The reason that public funding of research is the way it is because they take advantage of people like me, because there's just not that much budget. They'd rather give 2 PhDs $28,000 a year instead of giving 1 PhD $50,000 a year. So part of the reason why this and the research that I'm doing, which is noble, it's fucking fantastic, it'll contribute to the greater knowledge of science. None of it will be practiced on patients, because to practice it on patients requires so much money and so much resources that like public funding just doesn't have.
Okay. So EDV has been let out early on good behavior and on being white. So we're gonna throw it first to Demonmama.
Can I respond to?
Sure. If it was it something made directly to you?
Yeah, because there's something that Destiny said that.
Boy, there is nothing like being what
Okay,
is
cool.
it when say it's not misgendering, obviously, but it's like
Let the
white.
Nacho guy talk. Why don't we cut Nacho off?
Miscategorized?
Oh my
let's
god!
Go, let's go, Nacho. Come on.
Look at this guy. Hold on,
Nacho.
I've been getting some damn Florida sun down here, right? Like it's just getting darker, right?
Yes.
Matter of fact, yesterday I had somebody walk up to me and just start speaking Spanish.
I'm sure everybody asked you all the great questions during Black History Month, and you're the MLK of our time. But we're going to Nacho right now, okay?
Yeah, I thought I was going to have to pull an POC card. So I just wanted to clarify the point that I was making, that Destiny like touched on earlier. In that I know that the research. I want to clarify that the research that the pharmaceutical companies do and like their end product and all the stuff that they do with it, and like they lose a ton of money and take a lot of risks, etc. Like, but the base research that they're building off of is publicly funded. Now, then when they take that research, when they take like the CRISPR and they take the other things, like they lose a lot of money investing. Like just like you pointed out that. There were a lot of other companies trying to make vaccines and they lost out on it. Like companies could go bankrupt trying to find the next cure to whatever, like cancer, etc. But they're doing it off of the back. Generally, most of the time, they're doing it off the back of some kind of like publicly funded research. So I think I don't know, it's just to try to say that like I was even bringing that up just to say that I think what we do with our public funding right now generally is pretty damn good. And the fact that the private companies are going to take all the risk, in doing this research is probably a net benefit for all of us. So.
Demonmama.
Yeah. Okay. So there's a couple of issues. Like the fact.
Wait 1 second. I need to use the bathroom desperately. Please, nobody break the rules while I'm gone. I'll be right back.
Okay. So, public funding being short and being it's like that's a huge problem that I agree with. Like we have a notorious problem in the US of creating our own problems with funding. Basically what happens is Republicans get in office, they cut public funding to research, they cut public funding to health, whatever, and then when it starts getting worse, they go, look at how bad it is, and then they justify that to cut further funding. This is like a known political topic. Like I know most everyone here has talked about this in the past when it's not having to do with whether it agrees with you in this particular context. The fact that your experience with public funding is bad, like I agree, like I would agree with you. I think we should give more funding. We should make these processes more efficient, and we should rely less on corporate interests that are extremely, extremely profit driven. And while I agree that the private industry can sometimes like when private industries can sometimes respond faster, a lot of that is because they have no other responsibility aside from making money. So they can dump an entire team of people who've been doing research. All that can go in the trash if they want it to, as long as they're making more money. And there are in our currently existing system, there aren't really like that doesn't quite exist for the public eye. But there's nothing to say that we can't build ourselves a public investment structure that also says, hey, if we need to move quickly, if something is failing and it's sucking up a lot of resources, we can cut this thing. And that would kill two birds with one stone. One, it would make our public structures more efficient. And secondly, it would cut out the profit incentive, which is a huge issue in pharmaceuticals. And it doesn't matter the failure rate of mom and pop pharmaceutical manufacturers. The fact of reality is that there are massive multinational, multi-billion dollar industries that do indeed have a profit incentive in what they choose to research. This is an issue with rare forms of cancer that are unable to get any sort of attention because there is no backup. So those things are very serious.
How would you pick so let's say a company. So like if we had a publicly funded company, would you say like what? So they're losing money for 5 years, 10 years, then we just stop publicly funding them?
Well, no. I mean, if you're talking about, I'm not talking about a publicly funded company. Let's say that we expand the CDC and we have various.
No, but how do you pick and choose what research gets researched?
Wait,
we already do this.
We already do this.
For drugs. You want to do this for drugs, not general research. How do you do it for drugs?
Hold on a second. We already do this in other publicly funded things. We can structure it to be better. You use the scientific method to identify which of these are, what are the statistics? What's the likelihood of success? Are we going to have a failure on this? Okay. Yeah, obviously it's a complicated process. But wait hold on a second. What we do, wait a second. It already costs money. But just
the private companies are taking it.
Stop. I know. I get it. I promise you. You don't need to, holy shit. Yes, the private companies, they both get to benefit from it. They make a lot of money from it, and they take those risks. Now, if we say, hold on a second, we recognize that a medicine is a public good that we probably shouldn't have built into the profit motive. You say, okay, here's what we allot for funds, and we use the scientific method as companies do internally.
Please stop saying the scientific method. You're killing me.
They also
what do you mean?
Pay for law.
Well, I think
you're actually killing me.
the scientific. The scientific.
This is so stupid.
I'm not.
You don't use the scientific method.
Great,
to
Scott,
determine-
like the scientific method.
I've ever been on because.
Okay. Ooh,
Okay.
that was real
Can
close too for the second person. Okay, Demonmama, please finish your point.
Oh, thank God. What I'm talking about is there are all kinds. Okay, there are all kinds of ways. I mean, listen, I don't work for a research company, but listen, I know for a fact, and I know Dr. Heem can't look at me in the straight face and say that there aren't already existing peer review methods that are sometimes enforced privately, sometimes enforced publicly. There's a hybrid of these, which allows us to determine the validity, the success rate of various things. If you make that a public enterprise with the goal of being the public good, you take out the profit incentive, but the government maintains it. The people involved in it maintain their incentives. They're still being paid because the government would be able to fund it better. And the government has the goal of generating medicines that will help the most people possible. There's just not a profit incentive for private interests. Now, are there potential roadblocks in that? Yeah, I'm sure there are. There's all kinds of things, nitty gritty, that we'll have to figure out. But removing that profit incentive is really, really big. And the benefit that you get back, that the people who are doing the investment, the people who are doing the research, they get paid well with a nice public job. And the public gains the benefit of reliably getting resources or vaccines or medicines that will help them. That's the payoff. And in the long run, the government, the nation, the society, the planet gets the benefit of not having people die, which, as it turns out, people being sick and dying is super, super expensive. It's just an abstracted economic value. And we know for a fact that companies and governments alike already calculate to some degree the impact of diseases and downtime and deaths on their economy. We can just do this as well, but adjust our calculations so that we figure out what the actual value of producing these vaccines are, of producing these medicines are for the public.
Okay, so who wants to respond to that? I know Counter.
Oh, I got it.
Anybody? Okay, Counter.
Yeah, so you guys are talking past each other a little bit. I've already brought it up. It's fine. That's because I don't have a capitalist jerk-off or a socialist jerk-off impulse. So we already do this. We do this with the military. Yeah, I have normal masturbatory impulses, okay? So my normal masturbatory impulses are telling me that we already do this. We do this with the military industrial complex, and there's actually a really great quote that I fucking hate. And it's basically, the world will not know peace until the money dedicated towards weaponry is dedicated towards livingry. I hate this quote because I'm not a fucking hippie, but it's a great goddamn quote. So basically what you can do, because I worked in logistics, so I understand the military industrial complex, is you have a certain amount of R&D budget that rotates throughout the year. You hire a bunch of private entities that know that they're going to get a minimum contract. These companies you already know: Boeing, Lockheed Martin, Pratt & Whitney, a whole bunch of mega corporations who can count on the United States government for billions of dollars every single year. And they know that their engineers and their employees and their administrators and all that kind of stuff are going to be employed year after year after year after year. Those people make not phenomenal salaries. They're not making like doctor salaries, but they are making living salaries. And on top of that, they will grow and shrink in response to actual conflict. So there is a certain amount of the population that is on the chopping block. Now, there's problems that Destiny alluded to, which is basically waste. There is a fuckload of waste. So the F-35, I want to say over its like 10-year lifespan is going to end up costing trillions of dollars. I want to say that they spent like 1.3 billion just developing a helmet. But at the same time, these R&D projects are going to pay off in the future because they're already building augmented reality off of the $1.3 billion helmet. And they're also building the next generation of stealth fighters. Those are probably the UFOs that you see in the sky right now. So all of this being said, these massive public investments do pay off long term. And just because they're wasted doesn't mean they're wasted. Final point before I yield. So for instance, we brought up how inefficient our agricultural systems are. They are inefficient, but as a result, everybody inside the United States of America, except for 2 weeks during the COVID scare, basically know that their grocery store will be stocked. Barring some weird natural disaster, they will have food access. There are some public benefits that outweigh, basically private interest. And I would say destroying a deadly disease that has frozen the global economy is not just a public interest for the United States, it's a public interest for the world. So we can get into fucking nitty gritty about fucking logistics, research, mRNA versus whatever, but basically that's the North Star. And you could basically create a health industrial complex the way you have a military industrial complex. Yield.
I don't think anybody thinks there's anything wrong with public-private partnership. I think that the example that the U.S. sets is really, really, really positive of that. Yeah, I don't disagree.
Okay.
Okay, is everybody...
Well, then fuck you, Destiny. You're an asshole.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. So is that everything on this topic? CTV, I know you're muted. Or do you want to say anything, or anybody else want to say anything, or are we done with this topic?
I'm okay with moving.
I'm just glad that the U.S., with all its evil profit incentives and everything, managed to develop a lot of these vaccines that are going out to the world right now. And yeah, I think that's really cool.
Okay.
Keep up the great work, evil pharmaceuticals.
Okay, we're going to do quick ending statements around the room, and then we'll go into the last topic. Okay, Heemed, we're going to start with you.
Okay. Yeah, so I think...
Keep it under a minute.
Yeah, I think my stance has been pretty clear. I fucking want the vaccine to be given to as many people as possible, but I think it's not important to just get vaccines. It's important to get vaccines that are safe. I don't want to cut any sort of corners when it comes to safety, and I don't see how waiving the IP would, like, today we waive the IP, tomorrow we 10x our manufacturing or anything of the sort. I don't see how it would improve or increase the speed anyway. And it seems to be the case, and we never really got to discussing this, that every factory that has the capability of producing the vaccine is getting licensed the vaccine. I don't understand why people think that, like, I don't know. I guess I just don't understand why the pharma corps wouldn't want to be first to market in every single country. It's not like there's a monopoly on the vaccine and only one company is creating it. There's a competition right now with multiple different companies trying to race to be the first one so they can, like you said, make the most money. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And I don't think that publicly funded medicine, just like research, I'm for universal healthcare, but I don't think publicly funded pharmaceuticals is necessarily going to work ever.
Okay,
and that's my closing statement.
Demonmama.
Sure. Well, I'm really actually very pleased with how this topic went, because by the end of it, everybody agreed with basically literally exactly what I said at the beginning, which is that we should help as much as we can. I don't really know. We can go back and forth on the IP thing. That's neither here nor there. We should do what we can to help. And I do believe that taking a proactive approach towards this will help us fight against future pandemics in the future. Maybe Heemed is right. Maybe if we didn't unpatent the polio vaccine, we'd be in a perfect position right now too. But there's always the possibility that somebody scoops up that patent and is really malicious with it. I don't think we should have a profit incentive involved in something where the global health incentive is at potential opposites to the profit incentive. We should just get the profit incentive out of it and focus on the thing that matters, which is the global health incentive. And the way that you do that is by offering aid, being communicative, getting as many experts as we can, like the ingenious people in Russia who invented a vaccine, like the ingenious German scientists who invented a vaccine, like the ingenious other scientists around the world who don't happen to be American, but also have big brains. As it turns out, you don't have to be American to be smart. So yeah, let's do that.
Shaved.
I might take a little longer than a minute. I've been incredibly quiet. I coming at this from a more like person who really hates intellectual property law and thinks it's super cringe. I don't think intellectual property laws are like the biggest, like even a significant barrier to like getting vaccines out around the world. Destiny brought up that like already there's incredible shortage in the market on labor supply, as well as just like manufacturing capabilities or like actual machines to make these things. And like I could see that IP laws as they are could be used to ensure equality for all of those in some regard. An alternative to that, IP law historically to me has been exclusively used to establish some pretty cringe market monopolies, starting with like Thomas Edison in the film industry. He was able to like go so far to like hire goons to beat up other people who were infringing on his intellectual property rights. That was done like entirely at the behest of the state. So like these kind of laws inherently benefit these established market players, and they can use it to like continue their hold on the like section of the economy. Thankfully, they were able to escape that and go to California. But then again, they just kind of did the exact same thing Edison did. They established their own monopoly and everything. That being said, this was originally about helping India, and we should do as much as we can. The first thing, at least with intellectual property laws, we should suspend all IP around our like American cable networks. And so we can provide all of India with the like 200 plus channels of TV doctors so that they can get really good and healthy like us Americans here. Yeah.
Okay. Next is going to be Eris.
I'm just, same thing what I said earlier. Like, I just think it's we need to help out India, and we need to kind of get out of the nation first concept, because everything, there's domino effect. Everything eventually affects us, like eventually, and also America should help, its neighbor Canada a little bit, because we're also struggling. Not at the level India is, but we're having a really hard time as well. But yeah, that's it. I'm excited for the next topic.
Okay, now I'm going to throw it over to Nacho.
Yeah, I think America should probably help as many people as we can with the vaccinations because I think it's in our best interest generally. I mean, we don't want this thing spreading around the globe. We have 2 different strains already popping up in India specifically. So if the question, which the original question was, should we help India? I think we should help them. But if it's like, should we remove all the barriers around a brand new technology that we just learned how to use ourselves, I think that would be more dangerous than it would helpful. That's it. I yield.
Okay, now it's going to be CounterPoints.
Yeah, so I think the main thing that I wanted to drive home was just the public-private balance. We do have a military-industrial complex. It's oftentimes criticized. It's inefficient. It's bloated. It's wasteful. All that kind of stuff. That being said, it develops incredible technology. I wouldn't mind a health industrial complex being created. I think it's fucked up that Dr. Heem has to work for $4 an hour in order to develop research that ends up benefiting the globe. I wish you well on that. I hope that by the time you're in your 40s, you can basically buy $3,000 wine, have a $3,000 wine monthly budget because you deserve it, buddy.
Thank you.
But the so health industrial complex was my main takeaway, and then I just want to say efficiency isn't our only metric. So there are public goods that have to be balanced against efficiency. The market is incredibly good at being efficient, but also the problem with efficiency is there's a lack of redundancy. One of the things that scared the shit out of me when it came to COVID was basically seeing the food supply lines kind of buckle for a few weeks. Also them talking about a meat shortage probably 6 months into the pandemic. We need to realize that redundancy and security when it comes to basic human needs might be a good thing. And we shouldn't use efficiency or the market for all of the things. I understand Dr. Heem's concern that if we just roll out vaccines or the mRNA specifically, we could create some nasty superbugs that wipe out the planet and then maybe we get zombies or some shit. I think we do need to balance that concern out and maybe not sell the or or open the mRNA vaccine to a meth lab in the Philippines. But that being said, I do think we need to basically consider like the global impact of deadly diseases and how we attack it as a global community, because since we are in a global economy, any disease that fucks over vast markets like India or China ultimately fuck us as well. Also, when it comes to this topic particular, America first, fuck Canada, except for Layman and Eris. Yield.
Wait, I'm Canadian too.
Oh, and DrHeemed. Every other Canadian can suck it.
Okay, thanks.
Destiny.
Yeah, we should
I
obviously
don't know how to
do
feel.
what we can to help India recover from its unbelievably monumental fuck-ups, which is causing a whole bunch of problems around India right now, and maybe around the world in the future. Whatever that looks like, if that's like shipping them more vaccines, if it's selling it to them at cost, but we're giving them for free, I think it's in all of our like best interest to do what we can to help India overcome the virus.
And CTV.
Yeah, I think that at this point, right, we should probably just look at getting India added as a state of the United States, right? Let's just put it up to a vote, have them vote to be a part of the union, and let's just kind of roll from there, right? We've got a whole lot of geopolitical things to consider in the area. We could set up some military bases right there on China's doorstep. You know, there's a lot of things that could be done, right, on U.S. soil, right? So I don't know, maybe we two birds, one stone. Maybe two birds, one stone.
Great. We're going to go into the last topic, which is, should Twitch moderate hot tub streams? Yeah, it's pretty self-explanatory. What should our policy around hot tub streams be? Is it consistent? What should we do about them? Squad W, we're going to start in the top left-hand corner with Heemed.
Okay, this is a really interesting topic. Honestly, it's not something that it's definitely not something I've spent as much time on like I have with the vaccine patent. I've spent a way more time digging into the nitty-gritty of that. But I will say, and I'm looking forward to hearing everyone's answers. Maybe I'll shift my position. My initial position is that either Twitch has to get rid of the just chatting section altogether and force everyone to play games, or if you're going to have a just chatting section, you kind of are opening the Pandora's box to all kinds of things. I think as long as people are not like showing titty, like nipple, or like anything crazy like that, I really don't see how you can draw a line and judge it. Also, the people who watch those streams typically are not going to be watching my streams anyways. I don't feel like we're in any sort of competition, so good for them. Make racks.
With racks. Demonmama?
So I did a lot of research in preparation for this topic, and I have to say, there is truth in the idea, at least as far as I can tell, that there's not a whole lot of overlap between these channels and other channels on Twitch, which perhaps that's its own problem in and of itself. But there's been a lot of talk about the hot tub meta and all of these problems. Honestly, I would really hope they don't get rid of the just chatting segment. That would be very sad. That's one of my concerns. I think that just chatting is fantastic and has brought a lot of attention to the platform. There are some issues, I think, but a lot of those come, in my mind, as a result of the TOS being very, very unclear, and clarifying or at least making more structured the TOS would probably help with most of the issues. With regard to analytics, like the #1 largest hot tub streamer is like not even on the top 100 list by like average view count. By some metrics, like usually what are they called? Compounded metrics based on all like follower count, gain new followers, et cetera, et cetera. Amaranth is like 42nd on the list of the top 100 streams that are on the rise, but that's completely varies from site to site based on how they choose to compound their analytics. What I'm basically saying is there's not really a major threat to anybody with this, and while some people might be irked by it or whatever, I don't really think it's like a major threat. I think the biggest issue is that Twitch just needs to refine and clarify their TOS. And I would say this in multiple aspects, by the way, not just with regard to their policies on nudity and clothing, but also with regard to their hate speech policies, with regard to their, violent and protest coverage. There's a lot of policies on the site that are really unclear, and it leads to a very unfair feeling enforcement situation on Twitch, in my opinion.
Shaved?
I don't want to say that nobody actually gives a fuck about them being hot tub streams, but I mean, there is some concern for it and care for it, but ultimately it's exactly as it's already laid out. I think I mentioned it earlier with Facebook, at least. We are still in our technological infancy when it comes to the internet. We've made a lot of progress, but when it comes to governing what is essentially a stateless society of a couple million people online, we haven't quite developed the right amount of moderation systems when it comes to what we qualitatively judge. I think largely Twitch needs to move to a more public and codified moderation system where they can make public rulings and point to evidence in the past on why they chose things or the otherwise, and maybe even have users input on it in some degree. I don't know. I think that might lead to more brigading and whatnot, but yeah, I think the only other concern that could come up is it being what is essentially softcore porn and accessible to other individuals on the site who aren't of age and might not be shouldn't be seeing that content or having easy access to that content. But I think we take a lot of steps to minimize that anyway. And we could do more. Yeah.
Eris?
Okay, just 1 second. Sorry. Okay, so I'm actually a hot tub streamer, right? But anyways, I think just in general, the issue is not the hot tub, right? The issue is the reason why people are using the hot tub, which is to get around Twitch's rules. Being sexual, being sexual. And we all know that people are breaking the rules. We all know that, the content is sexualized, whatsoever. I mean, I'm not technically, even though right now I'm in a hot tub, I wouldn't be counted as being a hot tub streamer because I'm not in a bikini. So what people really have a problem with are women in bikinis. While I can understand the feminist arguments about that, I also understand the consequences of what amounts to basically, a sexualized woman's body being the most profitable way to be a woman on this platform, which is true, and it sucks. It sucks for those of us who are not comfortable doing that for whatever reason. And I'm sorry, my audience likes bouncing the ball in my hot tub. But and also Twitch just needs to start realizing what kind of content they want to support on their stream, on their platform in general. Right now, it really feels like they don't mind profiting off of sexual stuff. They don't mind profiting off of death threats or toxicity or streamers being incredibly cruel to one another. There's so many problems in general on Twitch, and I just wish that they were more strict in general. But it is kind of like a family. It's supposed to be family friendly. It's supposed to be available to kids. And there is an issue initially when I was first totally fine with, the hot tub streamers and everything. But then when I started looking into it and I looked into the people who go into the hot tub streams, they don't actually go into anyone else's streams. It's very rare. They're not actually moving into, so it's not they're increasing viewership for everyone else. And I feel that's actually kind of a bad thing, because I think one of the biggest arguments people like Amber had was that she was bringing in new people, and then new people would come in and then move over to everyone else's streams too, and it was just an overall kind of good for bringing more audience, more of an audience to it. And it just in general, I know it's kind of being framed as this women's rights thing. Women can do what they want with their bodies and all that stuff. But you have to understand that in a community, Twitch is a community, and anyone's actions have consequences to the overall community. So if it becomes super profitable to be wearing a bikini, and you're a woman who is not comfortable doing that for whatever reason, you're actually still, it's not as simple as saying, oh, just do whatever you want with your body. It's that person's kind of being pressured. There's a huge financial incentive, especially in this competitive atmosphere, to show more skin than they're comfortable with and all that stuff. So I do think in general it affects community. And I don't think it could just be dismissed as simply, oh, like you're just being sexist, you're telling women what they can and can't do with their bodies, because it does affect, not like other women as well. It's just like a much more complex issue. That's it.
Gonna throw it over to American Nacho.
So I think for me it's more like I don't really care. I don't have anything against women doing what they want to do with their bodies, but fuck hot tub streamers only because they're messing with our platform. Okay, so it's like it's not like I care necessarily morally. It's more like if I go set up shop, if I gotta like run a spot at the local mall or whatever, or like the flea market, whatever it is, and I go rent a space there, right? And I'm doing business out of there, and like 2 doors down, a strip club moves in, and they're gonna like host a couple strippers there, right? Because it's no secret that these streams are meant to be a link to their OnlyFans, right? Okay, so let's not pretend. So they move in next door, and then I go and I'm trying to give up my business card to people, and I'm like, hey, yeah, my business is located down here in this mall or in this flea market, and they're like, oh, you mean the one with the strippers in it? So like that's more what it is to me. I don't really care how you make your money. This is America. Like the libertarian in me is like, fuck it, do what you want. But the fact that like I'm trying to like do my thing on this platform, and this is where they want to come and like hang out to promote their OnlyFans, like it just seems kind of like dirty, I guess, to me. It's like I have to tell my mom like, hey, yeah, come check me out on Twitch. And then when she makes a new account, like I've been on Twitch on a brand new account. When I had to set up my wife for her brand new account for her to start streaming, these are the top promoted like 3 hot tub streamers in a row, like at the top of the page. Okay. And whether you click 18 and up or not, before you're even logged in, if you log out of Twitch, like these are the things that come up in the top. So, I mean, that's pretty much it for me. I yield.
I think they recommend it based on your past viewings.
Gonna throw it over to
CTV. What if you're not logged in?
Well, I think that this is probably going to be a similar argument to what we were having earlier, and it's already been hit the nail on the head with regard to moderation. It's not being very consistent, right? And it's just, these attempts are obviously to skirt rules. So with all this in mind, right? We just got through running a poll over here in the Wolf's Den, right? And it's confirmed, right? The pack wants to see CTV in a Speedo. I have no idea why, right? But the pack wants to see CTV in a Speedo. So apparently we're going to be doing some hot tub streams and some poolside streams, right? And that's just, we're just going to be doing it, right? I don't know. I think that if the moderation was more consistent, then an idea like that would just obviously be laughed at completely. But since there's other people obviously doing it, it's like, well, it's silly, but fucking go for it, right? So that's where the moderation not being consistent creates that dynamic. And I don't know. We'll just kind of see where it goes, I guess.
Okay. I'm going to throw it over to CounterPoints.
Yeah, so I definitely want Twitch to moderate this activity. I think they should move it to an NSFW category. That way, and I think it also should be restricted to 18 and up. It should be treated as softcore porn. I don't think it should necessarily be booted from the platform. If this is whatever, if this is how they make their money, that's cool. I love Tiggle Biddies as well, so that's sweet. I just don't want, like, if my kid was 14 logging into Twitch, watching his favorite, streamer Destiny in his 50s. Then 20 years from now, because my son is 3. So basically, if that were to happen, I would be concerned if the first thing that he caught was hot tub titty streamers riding bananas and then basically acting like they weren't being sexual. That being said, I do want this moderation and NSFW category to be done maybe in about 60 to 90 days. I'm currently at 6,500 subscribers on YouTube. Once I break 10K, CTV and I and all of the right-wing people who will join me, we are going to buy either Speedos or short shorts, and we are going to do a group conservative hot tub stream where you get to see our sweet dad bods and our banana hammocks. So once we do my inaugural Twitch stream, that's very sexual, then we can create the NSFW category, and then they could be moved to their own category, still on the program, but age conditioned. Yield.
Destiny.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think like make a softcore porn category and then put it there. There needs to be like a separate category so that advertisers aren't scared off from the platform. Although just having that not safe for work associated, that might be enough to do it. But like, I mean, obviously, I don't think that pornographic content belongs on Twitch. I love pornographic content. I just don't know if it's appropriate to like intermingle everything. And I mean, that's clearly what's happening here. So.
Okay. Heem?
Yeah.
A lot of people want to take it off. Take it freely.
Okay, so there's a couple. It's the thing about sexualization is that it's kind of like a vague term, I guess. I have a beard cam on my stream. Okay, I literally have a cam that points to my beard, and sometimes I brush it. Is that sexualized content? Maybe.
Can I ask a question for everybody on this panel in regards to that? Wait. I have a really big question.
Okay.
Does anybody here agree?
Wait. Heem, are you okay with them doing that? You were
yeah,
in the
of
middle
course.
It's about what you just said. Okay.
Sure, go ahead.
Does everybody here agree? I want to see a raise of hands. Who agrees that it's kind of blurry to figure out like what sexualized content is in regards to some of these hot tub streams? Can I see a show of hands for who thinks that? Okay. All of these people that have their hands up right now, keep them up, get them up there. Could you please keep your hand up if you would be comfortable if a 13-year-old were to come onto Twitch and do an Amaranth bikini hot tub stream?
No. But I can't.
Okay, so like that's the issue. So I guess Demonmama would be okay with literal children coming onto the platform and like riding around and like
I don't know
bananas with
enough
bikinis
about
and everything.
Amaranth to say
but,
that particular content creator.
Then why did you put your hand up?
Were you saying viewing or were you saying doing?
I'm saying doing.
I was waiting for a response.
I'm saying come on to Twitch and do a stream where you are riding a banana as a 13-year-old in a scanty bikini where you can see tons of cleavage and tons of booty.
13-year-old booty in this circumstance.
And yes, so I think that's the reason why I bring this up as an analogy because I keep getting this weird argument where people are like lying to either themselves or anyone else. They're like, oh well, it's not sexual content. It's like, okay, if it's not sexual content, then we should have no problems with like a 13-year-old coming onto Twitch and doing the exact same thing that Amaranth or Indie Fox does, right?
It is sexualized content for sure. I think we can all agree. It's just that like where exactly do you draw the line? Do you draw the line if a girl is showing cleavage? Do you
wherever you draw the line?
So hang on, how do you compare like a good-looking person to not a good-looking person? Like it just becomes so vague.
But I mean, like in the U.S. courts,
you could flip this around the same way, right? Like, there's a lot of ways that you could make something that would probably seem pretty weird if it was like a 13-year-old. Like, for example, if somebody if some like dude on Twitch who's like really ripped tore off his shirt, and this is allowed by TOS right now, and just started doing a fucking dance, like just shirtless, ripped as fuck, just doing a fucking dance. You know what I mean? Just a dance that maybe is like vaguely sexual. And then you said, well, why don't we put a 13-year-old and have a 13-year-old peel off his shirt and start to, okay, it starts getting really weird. There are a lot of things that if
I don't know if this is just me not being a pedophile, but I would also be really weird seeing topless 13-year-olds, even if they were little boys dancing on Twitch.
But that's I agree.
Now I admit I'm a father, so maybe I'm a little bit biased there, but the idea of like my son in 3 years coming onto Twitch and dancing topless, that sounds really fucking weird to me. So I don't know how that's supposed to be an example of like it's so ambiguous.
No, I'm not arguing against you, Destiny. Jesus fucking.
Well, but you just did. You said it was ambiguous.
I agreed with you. I'm augmenting your point by saying that we have a thing that is currently allowed in TOS.
Didn't agree with the augmentation.
Wait. Well, that's fine. Nobody asked you. Who asked? Any askers? No.
Oh, I just told you that I didn't require
nobody
you.
Asked you. Nobody asked you. Nobody asked you.
Right? That's how that fucking works.
Go back to sleep. Go back to sleep. Go back to sleep. All right, now
that you've been told,
I
agree
with you. Wait, I agree with you that like there are issues with like sexualized content like this, but I think that this is a deeper problem that goes deeper into the TOS because, like I said, like even if we agreed that like okay, the hot tub shit is like too much, we have other rules that are currently in existence that would permit content that you yourself just said that you would be irked out by. So how do you build a rule that says, you know, maybe 13-year-olds shouldn't be taking their shirts off and dancing in front of a camera, but also do you see what I'm saying?
No, like so like in the U.S. courts, like we call in the U.S. courts, we call this, we'll know it when we see it. Like, I mean, like it might be the case that down the road, we run into some like very like on the line cases where you have a 14-year-old girl that wants to do like a Just Dance stream. And it's like, I don't know. But we are like so far over that line. It's not even a conversation that's worth entertaining right now. Like right now on Twitch, we have softcore porn. And I think that we need to like do something better to address it. And like the weird, like kind of tone policing is like, well, you know, what if in the future what if there's a 14-year-old and they just happen to have really big boobs and they want to dance one time on stream and maybe they level like, okay, like, yeah, I agree that in the future, maybe there are like going to be some edge cases where it's kind of, but we already do that with any TOS. Like you always have to make these kinds of value statements, like what counts as like radical speech or what counts as a terrorist threat or what counts as a blah, blah, blah. Like you're not going to have a hard line on literally anything. Sexual content is no different.
Can I ask you a question? How do you feel about ASMR streams in general? And also, before you answer that, a lot of people brought up that these girls are using this as an opportunity to plug their OnlyFans.
Yep.
We plug our Patreons. So what's the difference?
That's okay. The difference is that you're not supposed to plug sexual content on Twitch. So like, for instance, I can't link to my OnlyFans on Twitch, but I can link to a link tree that has my OnlyFans, right? Like it's kind of like, okay, well, that's not really like the spirit of the rule is being violated there.
Okay, sure. So we don't actually have a problem with that?
With what?
Like I'm asking, forget about the TOS. I'm asking like, how do you feel about, do you think that it's okay if, like, let's say, I'm just asking, do you think it's okay for them to plug their OnlyFans?
No, I think that mixing, I don't think you should I don't think you can mix safe for work and not safe for work content. It's just really bad for advertising. Like every other platform figured this out. Like Tumblr figured this out. Fucking Imager figured this out. I think Imager doesn't do it. Not safe for work content, right? Like,
okay, and then if you could answer my ASMR.
So the ASMR isn't, so believe it or not, Jesus, as somebody that has followed ASMR communities for so long.
I don't, I'm not unfamiliar.
So ASMR
wait, hold on. Wait, Destiny, we might have found some common ground because I also have followed ASMR communities for a very long time.
Then we probably know Heather Feather and the first girl, that Veni Vidi Vici girl.
Oh, look at you guys.
Softly Galoshes, classic.
Yeah. So, and Ephemeral Rift before he got really weird and sexist.
Ooh,
and like,
that's
yeah.
true, he did. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. So the problem is that originally, these communities were never sexual. Like ASMR was never like a sexual thing, but somehow, I guess on Twitch, if you ask most people what ASMR is, they think it's like people giving like ear blowjobs or whatever.
Sure.
I think if it's like very sexualized ASMR, that's probably a problem. But like generally, ASMR is a category. It's not supposed to be. It's not generally a sexual thing. It's not supposed to be a sexual thing.
But it's so hard to draw. Like then you have to have individual human beings listening to every stream to figure out where it's sexual, where it's not. Unless you just ban just chatting.
So it's not to every stream. And again, I have to ask for like a little bit of good faith here. Like I know immediately because I still do listen to ASMR sometimes when I'm working on shit. I do. I know immediately within 2 seconds of looking at something what I'm looking at. Okay.
Okay.
If I open a YouTube channel and I'm getting like a girl with like a plunging neckline thing, and she's like, "Hey guys, today we're gonna do like I'm watching like a softcore porn on YouTube, right? It's way different than like, oh, here's like 55 top triggers for teenagers or blah blah blah, or here's 27 different checkout books at the library that make a certain noise when you open the pages, right? It's immediately noticeable as a totally different category, and there is little to no ambiguity about it, in my opinion.
Yeah,
but the idea that it's difficult to like decide whether or not like a bikini streamer is sexualized or not is pretty.
Okay, wait 1 sec. So can I respond 1 sec to what Destiny said? So so right now I agree with you that I mean again I don't watch ASMR content, so I maybe I shouldn't weigh in on it or whatever. Yeah. Maybe right now it's the case that ASMR it's clear when it's sexual or not sexual, but once they start enforcing that hey, no more sexual ASMR, then you're gonna start to get some weird like they're gonna like drop it in a little bit, they're gonna pull it back a little bit, it'll become so much more ambiguous, and then again we're back in the same place where it's hard to moderate.
But there is a difference. If we're ambiguous because some girl like licks like an ear thing like one time every hour, whatever, we're in a way different world than like here is like my 2 hours of oral simulation of blowjob sounds, right? It's a way different world, and I'm okay with like the iffiness of that world versus where we're at now, which is like software one. And it's even with what you say, it's incredibly sad to me that a lot of people now seem to think that ASMR is literally just like fucking like blowjob sounds, and that's all it is. That's kind of sad to me.
No. Is that what you thought? Is that what you think? I think.
Oh, that's what you make it sound like when you say it. When you're like, oh, okay.
No. I understand. Yeah, it's not. I'm not thinking they're like gagging sounds and shit.
So clarifying question, like what ASMR, whenever it gets said, I think that it's more about sound than it is visual, right? So I think it's the visuals of things that are happening that definitely require more moderation versus like the sound, because there's a lot of cases where there are things that are said that if you don't have some type of experience with the thing ahead of time, then you might not understand the innuendo, right? So
I
Hold
promise
on,
you that
CTV.
there are plenty of ways
Are-
to make explicitly sexual content
Yeah.
using only sounds that you do
Yeah.
not have to only. It's not just visual. I
Yeah,
promise you. There's an
CTV, what
there's
it-
entire instances of it. But
Okay,
I want to
What,
say,
what do you
like,
think when you hear
Audiobook.
Quick question. All right. So are there which I don't
Can we-
are there
can we take a moment?
ASMR hot
Wait,
tub streamers?
Okay,
Sorry.
so Shave
Yes.
raised his hand a while ago, and he never got to speak. Spoke.
I mean, I want to read, like, I know a little bit about advertising on websites, and you can even see with like websites that allow NSFW or unmoderated content. Basically, the only advertisers they can get are like other NSFW products, like JList on 4chan is like the most popular advertiser, and they sell like Oni holes and stuff. Or like, and it's really about two extremes. So you either have to like focus on keeping all of your content like acceptable for a wide proportion of the population. Dylan, you joked about it when CounterPoints came in here and said the word penis, which means you're going to get demonetized. But like the other half of it is if you do allow NSFW content, you get some like really like the only ones that really pay money, which of course I don't buy into these. I know people who do, are like insanely malicious advertisements that try and like webhook into your computer whenever you click on them. So yeah, like it's actually okay to see hot tub streamers as a threat to people's profit incentives on Twitch. It could definitely hurt. I mean, we're already seeing some level of hurt in global followers and growth at large. Maybe not a lot, but I think some people will say that. But yeah, I think that that's an incredibly important point.
Yeah, and I just want to jump in really quickly. So rules, I understand like the fringe cases that were brought up, but rules almost necessitate exceptions. So for instance, like what is it? I think somebody, maybe it was like Hegel or something like that, said like the forwarding of a thesis almost automatically guarantees its antithesis. That's the same thing with a rule. As soon as you create a rule, there's almost a guarantee of an exception. But just because there's fuzziness around rules or fuzziness around categories doesn't mean you
just get rid of them.
Yeah, that doesn't mean you just eliminate rules or categories altogether. So for instance, if we have a negative thing that 13-year-olds now have access to softcore pornography on a regular basis, it seems like a lot of people get hooked into these parasocial relationships with very attractive women, but they're never going to get the kind of positive like emotional or physical attention that they probably actually want in real life, and it's distracting from their real IRL attempts to build relationships. Then I think this needs to go into NSFW, and it needs to go into an adult. That way adults are making the decisions about how they choose their time, choose to spend their time and their money. And that's pretty much it, but not for another 60 days, not until we have the banana hammock stream.
But Connor, the issue you brought up is an issue with all parasocial relationships.
Sure, but I'm trying to capitalize on parasocial relationships, so don't talk too loud.
Okay,
that's
sure.
that's the thing. I do think that there are. So there's a couple of different ways of analyzing this. I think that the parasocial one, I maybe call me black pilled on this particular issue. I don't think that Twitch and YouTube are ever going to do anything ever to move parasociality away from their, like, to address parasociality on their platforms. They make way too much money off of it to ever address it. In fact, they push it really hard. They push content creators to be super parasocial as much as possible. They're never going to do anything about it. So, but I do think there's huge issues. I think one of the biggest risks of like a lot of these sort of like lots of different types, even just some non-super sexual just chatting ones, but especially when you're acting on all of these different avenues for like obvious parasociality, it becomes a risk. But the fact of the matter is this entire industry is flush with parasociality. Every single one of us is guilty of it. We're doing it literally right now, most likely. It's really hard to deal with.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
But the audience is right there.
But I promise you that the audience isn't going to do anything about it because they're hooked. And guess what? Twitch isn't going to do anything about it because they're hooked too. So unfortunately, that's sticking around. We got to find better solutions to that. But with regard to the sexual content, like, I do agree that it's like it's not super clean to line these things up, but like as it stands right now, nobody knows what you can nobody knows what you can and cannot do on Twitch. Like it's just this is a long-standing critique I've had of the TOS. The TOS is very unclear, and I do think that even without creating like a not safe for work segment or section of the website, I do think that the TOS could be modified to be more clear about what type of actions and context are okay or not okay. Obviously there will always be people trying to find ways around the rules. But it would be a serious shame if we lost just chatting and ASMR as two genuinely enjoyable and not, areas of content just because of a handful of potentially problematic streamers. And at the end of the day, like, there's big risks to this. I agree. There's large risk, but it seems like a lot of the biggest risks seem to be in scaring off advertisers, which seems to be like something that's going to happen one way or another at this point if there's not some action taken. So I think the key action would be to refine the TOS and then see if that's able to clear things up a little bit so that maybe some of the people who are currently doing it will back down a little bit or refine so that they're within TOS and we want a big of a problem. And if necessary, create a not safe for work segment.
I'm a boomer, so I'm not on Twitch. What category are we in technically right now?
Just chatting, baby.
Just chatting.
Damn.
Can I ask a question?
Sluts we are.
Can I ask a question? So,
No.
Like one of the problems was with like the kids watching this content, right? How do you feel about kids? Like, there's obviously some political streams that are extremely radical. How do we feel about kids stumbling onto those streams that could potentially be even worse than watching a kitty?
Up.
I mean, I can address this. Like, I think that like, unfortunately, like, a lot of the arguments that stem around trying to prevent children having access to certain types of content are like, most of the time they do more harm than good. And I say that because, like, I mean, we all know that every kid under the age of 18, under the age of 13 has played a fucking M+ game. Elsewise, how would we have the stereotypes about Xbox Live being horrible and full of children playing things they shouldn't play? Children, they're going to get access to porn websites. And it's unfortunate, but it's just a reality. And what we have to do is try and address those things to be as safe as possible without like doing ridiculous things like requiring you to upload a state ID in order to have a Twitch account. Like, as much as like the goal of protecting children from certain things is very, very respectable, the reality is that the internet is super hyper accessible and it's really hard to clamp down on that. So it really ends up being about adjusting a number of different social concerns. Like, for example, encouraging parents to be more involved in their kids' lives and in the decisions that their kids make. I know that sounds silly, but we know that that's the only answer for gaming as well. That if you make all these weird rules about shit like that, it starts to have very bad repercussions for other people. We don't want a world where Twitch is run by the likes of, what's that guy's name? Jack Thompson or whatever, the crazy anti-video game guy. And I'm like, I mean, that guy really went hard on that sort of stuff. He was pushing all kinds of laws, like making it possible to charge parents who buy mature games for their kids. Like, we get to a point where it becomes ridiculous. I do agree that children need to be protected.
Yeah, okay.
It just sounds like you're trying to avoid
I think that there's a problem in general.
Wait, okay. There was two people talking. I can't. Okay. Who was talking there? Sorry, I was
trying to.
Yeah, VTuber Destiny. Okay, so I'm gonna give it to Eris first. Who's the other person trying to talk? Actually. Okay, the Nacho. Eris the Nacho.
I find the whole like kid-friendly thing like strange because I agree. I do think Twitch needs to be like a kid-friendly platform. That's obviously an important part of gaming and all that stuff. But I've faced like when I found out that that I had accidentally broke TOS in one instance where I was teaching about the history of anti-Semitism. And I found out that you're not actually even allowed to show, even in an educative kind of like environment, you're not allowed to show any kind of like hateful imagery or something, even if like I'm showing primary sources or something. And that was like really, really frustrating because it's like very necessary when you're teaching. So even if I'm giving like content warnings and all that stuff, I still couldn't do that. So like, I agree with you that I think that sometimes it can go too far, but it's just, that makes it all the more frustrating when I see like, when I can't teach something that I think like would be totally acceptable to be teaching, like even like a 7th grader or something, like showing them, the history of anti-Semitism or something like that. But then they can just go, and I can't do that, but then they could just go to someone else's stream and just see like, oh, a woman basically like half naked simulating a sexual act on a banana. And like, and that's okay. And it's just, Like, it just makes no sense to me. It feels like, I don't know, it feels like you get really punished, like on this platform for not sexualizing yourself.
But the thing,
especially as a smaller creator.
So the thing is, though, that like
Nacho was next. Then could we go to you? Is that okay?
Can I just respond quickly? I think the reason is, Eris, that
you didn't even wait for an answer. He didn't even wait for an answer.
I'm so sorry. I just gotta get
anyway.
So the reason, Eris,
now
is
I'm not
you're
gonna
good. Oh, okay.
I'm not going to because he didn't even wait for an answer.
All right, sorry.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Nacho,
sure.
then Heemed.
Yeah, I mean, I'm like really minimizing your retort there, Demonmama, but it just really seemed like you were trying to avoid saying like put porn everywhere because they can find it, but raise your kids better. Like, I mean, is that too minimalistic? But I mean,
I want to address that.
It's just like, I mean, I don't think that it's like, I don't know. I don't think it's that like. I think that's a very reductive way of interpreting my argument. I just am saying that like there has to be a balance, right? Like we all acknowledge that like, hey, having a check, a thing that appears, that pops up that says, hey, this is for 18-year-olds and older, is great. But they're gonna hit okay all the time. So then what's the next step? Then the next step is what, you have them upload a photo ID, and then you have porn sites that are keeping records of people's photo IDs. Some sketch, like it's a logistical problem. It's not like a moral issue. I mean, the fact of the matter is there already is porn plastered everywhere. Like, especially if you, I mean, like in other countries, that's even more so than here. Like, I'm not saying that that's the ideal state. It's just like that's how it is, and certain aspects of that are very difficult to correct or adjust, because if you do so, you end up putting other people at risk. You end up blocking people who have a legitimate reason to access these things. It's an actual issue, and yeah. With regard to there was one thing that Eris said that I kind of wanted to push back on a little bit, which is the idea of like I don't think that we can really attribute like the idea of needing to like women needing to sexualize themselves, or femme presenting people needing to sexualize themselves on just this particular thing. I don't think it's really fair to push this onto the hot tub streamers. That is an issue that goes far beyond that, and I do agree it's the case, but that's true for anyone in any field. If you are sexier with your content, people are gonna most likely like it more. But I don't know that like the presence of people who are like hot tub streaming is going to hurt political streamers. Although I will agree that like political streamers who sex it up a bit are probably going to do better than political streamers who don't, in general, with a few exceptions. But that doesn't have anything to do with the presence of those streamers, because I just don't think there's
a poolside stream right there in the Speedo.
So actually, one thing I will say is somebody that's been on the platform for a long time. It's for what?
Can I give it to Heemed first, then you, Destiny? Is that possible?
You don't have to ask me. It's your show. Do it, buddy.
That's right, okay. Destiny. Heemed, you should take a note from Destiny. Okay, continue.
Listen, Destiny's been doing this for 10 years. I haven't even hit 1 year. Give me 9 more years, bro. I'll learn. Don't worry. Okay, so I just want to respond to Eris. So Eris, I understand your frustration. I think we all understand your frustration when it comes to the like you can't even educate on these things. The problem is that there just isn't enough people on Twitch to watch every stream. I think there's like probably fucking hundreds of thousands of streams that happen every day. They don't have enough staff to go around and watch and check everybody's streams. There's a guy right now who is the biggest anti-COVID, anti-mask, anti-vaxxer in Canada. His name is Chris Sky. He has a Twitch channel right now where he actively promotes anti-COVID, anti-vax propaganda. The other day I was watching his channel. He even dropped anti-Semitic Holocaust denial. Okay, he dropped straight up Holocaust denial. I reported it. A bunch of people in my chat reported it. But he's still out here because like it's just very hard to. There's too many people on the platform, and like you even see it with partnered streamers that get banned. They don't even hear back from their partner. What is it called, Destiny? The partner thing,
manager.
Yeah, the account manager doesn't even respond to them as to why they've been banned until their ban is up. Like they clearly have a shortage of staff, and that's I think part of the reason why they're so wishy-washy.
Heemed, I would agree with you that it is like a shortage of staff, but it's also an over reliance on automated report functions. What this does, like, it's actually terrible. The way that it works right now basically encourages the worst actors to succeed. So I'll give you an example from YouTube that doesn't have to do directly with Twitch. I had a video that was debunking a just blatant COVID conspiracy theory, racist, like anti-Chinese video. That video is taken down, deleted from YouTube, and I got a strike for it. While the original video, my video had 100 views, the video that I was responding to and debunking had 90,000 views, still up now, even though, and the reason for that is that, like, those of us who are like engaging in the arena of ideas, we usually don't go on these big report brigades, but they will report the shit out of anything, which means the automated system gets turned against people who might be doing actually good stuff. And it doesn't work favorably to people who are churning out this other stuff. That's
But
part of the reason why.
That's what I think
would
people
guess.
are actually upset about.
What's that?
Like,
Yeah,
that's what I think people, like all the people who are
After
raging
Eris,
against
go to
hot tub
Destiny.
streamers.
Then count.
Yeah, all the people that are raging against hot tub streamers, I really feel like that's really what in general people are upset about, is like the double standard that they've seen. And I think like if Twitch needs to do something, it's to address that double standard first.
I don't even know if it's so much a double. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Eris. I just wanted to add
no,
one
you could do.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
No,
Eris.
it's fine. I was finished my point.
Yeah, I could care less about. Sorry, Demon, go ahead. I know you're about.
Yeah, no. All I was gonna say is like I don't know that it's even a double standard so much as there's not even a good standard to go off of, right? Like, we've gotten really mixed messages. I know for a fact that like Lucid Fox was in communication at one point with a Twitch partner support person who said that, oh, okay, certain educational context and protest footage and stuff like that is still fine, even if some hateful messages appear. But then in the TOS, it says you can't use it in educational contexts. And I know personally people, someone like Chud Logic, for example, who had their stream taken down, presumably for a few seconds of a image that he was using to talk about the dangers of extremism, which had a Nazi flag in it, got his channel taken down for a week. And it's like, so it's not even so much of a double standard as much as it's just no standard or no consistency whatsoever. And it is a big problem. I think that refining the TOS and committing like a team of people that they're actually willing to invest in would do so much to benefit everyone involved. But here's the thing, I don't know if it's going to benefit Twitch and Amazon, right? Like they probably make money not running with a skeleton crew. And I don't know how you overcome that.
Destiny?
Well,
Well, fuck, now we're moved past it. But there was a comment earlier about how like the audiences that hot tub people bring or whatever, that there aren't expectations fostered on a platform. You know, if I was to boot up a Chatterbait stream and I were to just start talking about politics, everybody on that platform, I imagine, probably get pretty upset because they're not there to see politics. I think that depending on the types of people you have on the platform, you're going to foster certain expectations for certain types of content. This is something that we all understand to be true. For a lot of the older people here, or I don't know if there are any older people here, but there used to be a streamer on this platform called Ice Poseidon. And one of the biggest reasons why people wanted him off the platform, aside from whatever shit Twitch said, a lot of people don't remember this, but it's because the audience that he brought here was actually incredibly toxic. Not just the streamers or not just the content that they did or whatever, but it was actually like all of the new people that were coming to Twitch to watch. All of those people, anytime Ice would go offline, would all flood the other chats, and people hated it. And then you have other like larger female streamers now that are starting to complain that like there's like this expectation as a female streamer that doesn't exist for male streamers, where it's like, where's your OnlyFans? Like, or do you have a Patreon where do you do cosplay? Like, there is kind of this expectation being created that to be a large, successful woman on Twitch, you need to be doing that safe content.
I'm getting that though. Like, I'm getting it so much that I had to actually make an OF link redeemable thing in the channel points, so that at least that there's like a thing. So it happens to male streamers.
No, it does not happen to male streamers in any.
It just happened, bro. I don't know what to tell you.
So
every day people ask me for a body pillow.
I mean,
do people ask you for a body pillow, CTV, huh?
I mean, I think I will have made it once they ask me for a body pillow.
Yeah.
That's gonna be the bar for success.
By the way, I don't entirely disagree with you, Destiny, about the expectation. Like I don't know. I think it's a little hard to suss out how far that goes, right? Like, I mean, for example, I mean, I think a lot of people come to Twitch expecting gameplay, and yet nonetheless there's a lot of just chatting in politics communities that have been fostered on here that aren't in line with the expectations of what a lot of people came to Twitch for, but I would say are valuable for the platform and good and can coexist with gaming content without necessarily taking away from Twitch's gaming vibe. I don't know. I do think that's a little bit of a harder spot. Like I will agree with you that yes, most people won't go to ChatterBait to find a politics stream, but that's a little bit more of a single purpose website. Whereas Twitch has clearly shown an interest in expanding beyond just gaming. I just think they need to decide and make up their mind exactly what they want to do and let us all know so that we can make decisions accordingly. Because as it stands right now, their intentions are very unclear, and it seems like a lot of their creators are getting whiplash both from TOS issues and also from content expectations.
Yeah, I actually got an announcement to make right now. It's a perfect time to make this announcement. So the politics community has been infiltrated. I was sent here in order to establish the Infinity Acre Wood as the gaming league for Twitch politics streamers to be able to participate in Halo 3, right? Using the Master Chief Collection, because here in the forwarding future, we are going to be doing it with Halo Infinite, right? So the community's infiltrated. There's a real clear way for us to be able to marry gaming and politics in the community, and for people to be able to have a way to shit talk each other that not always have to be so toxic along political lines. So this is how we actually grow the community, is by doing something like this. And this is the dream for Twitch moving forward. So
amen. I'm happy I could break it. Counter, you
I can do it in closing. How much longer are we running for? All right, cool. Then, yeah, I'll say this. So my short-term goal is you'll get a hot tub stream at 10K. If we break 100K, I'll make a body pillow and sell it as merch on the website. So there you go.
Okay, it looks like
that's
everybody's just
intellectual theft.
Looks like we're just about done with this topic, so I'm going to go around. Everybody's going to ending statements. We're going to wrap it up. Start with Heat, top left-hand corner.
Are we doing
and also do your outros, yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah. So
Maddie, I want to say MaddyCakes was here earlier. Be sure to support her content as well.
Okay. Yeah. So I initially said when we started this topic that this isn't something that I had thought about too much. I just gave you my initial point of view that that it becomes ambiguous as to what is sexual or not. Again, like I have a beard cam on my stream, which a lot of people would say it could be considered sexual. Like, I don't know. It's vague. Don't make that face, Destiny. You should see the way people thirst about it in chat, bro. And then the other thing I want to say, though, you did bring up a fucking great point that swayed me a little bit about like the 13-year-old doing a hot tub stream. I think like that I hadn't considered that before, and that was a great point you brought up. And yeah, I'll have to give it some more thought. And yeah, that's it. And so just plugging my channel, I'm DrHeemedOut. I stream Monday to Friday, 5:30 a.m. Eastern time until 8 a.m. Eastern time. It's the only time I have to consistently.
Absolutely insane. I have no clue why you do that.
It's because I have to go to work. I do research at the hospital, so I go until 8, and then I go at 9.
And need attention.
I know.
Get poggers.
I know. I gotta keep grinding. But yeah, we have a good time. When Destiny was banned, I was coined as the next upcoming omni-liberal. So take that for what you will. But now he's back, so he's regained his position. Yeah, it was really fucking fun. I had a lot of fun. If anybody wants to chat furthermore, we can chat anytime. And thanks for having me on, Dylan. It was a great time, and I'm glad to see you're feeling better.
Where's this rumor that I'm feeling better?
I mean,
no. He looks really grumpy to me right now.
If you weren't feeling
you might have
better,
gotten sick again after this.
I'm feeling. Look. The thing is, I am feeling not almost dead, right? Because I almost went into septic shock. So that's good. But I'm still not feeling great. Still feeling pretty bad, right? So it's like, I guess technically I am feeling better, right?
Yeah,
technically.
Well, continue to feel better. How's that? Sorry I overspoke or whatever the fuck. Misspoke, whatever.
Misspoke. Okay, Demonmama.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty complicated issue, but a lot of it, unfortunately, I do think falls at the feet of Twitch to be more clear about what they want from the platform, from their platform, and from their TOS. There's a lot of issues with TOS on this platform. I do think there is some validity to the argument of like of like what Destiny said about you'll know it when you see it. I do think there's some validity to that. However, that requires actually having a hands-on team that can look at reports of like, hey, this is over the line. A great example of this that we already have had unfold and not really be well resolved is the YouTube just for kids videos. Like there's been like a ton of like, I think there's a Down the Rabbit Hole episode about this, about these very weird kids videos that sometimes had extremely strange, like sexual content in them that were being churned out by like almost by algorithm. And the computers just couldn't deal with them. And like, and they never really got any people to sit down and filter through them as well. I do think that there needs to be on the side of these companies like Twitch and like YouTube and a lot of these other broadcasting companies, a devotion to having more human eyes on it that can make decisions and that can come to nuanced decisions and that can also offer feedback on how to enforce and improve the TOS. Robots can't tell you where your TOS is going wrong. They can just blindly enforce TOS according to whatever rules you give them. And as it turns out, that's a really messy way of doing things on a medium like this. Okay, and my name is Demonmama. You can find all of my stuff at demonmama.com /live to join the chat. I'll be doing Q&As and some debates and stuff after this, as well as a review of DrHeemedOut's content. So I've received permission. We're going to be talking about that later. So come on by.
I got brigaded by Nazis with downvotes on my YouTube video.
Don't you worry. We'll make sure some constructive comments come your way. All right.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Gonna throw it over to Shaved.
Mute.
That's a great point, Shaved.
I didn't do it the entire time until now. Online communities have had a horrid time combating illicit content. There's not like a lot of really good moderation tools, and the ones that are available are pretty bare bones. And not only that, there's been huge debate over time as the internet has grown over what is deemed acceptable or not. A lot of these issues still might plague judgment today, such as a specific example being Reddit, and like its old jailbait community and the upskirts and all that shit that they used to do and allow. Like there are still moderators and known people who are associated with all of that still in like administrative or moderation positions on Reddit. I think I mentioned earlier about like populations on the internet interacting with each other, especially between like in 2016, where you saw this massive spike in activity on like Reddit, 4chan, and all these other communities around politics. These hot tub streamers are essentially just invaders to us. They're non-gamers, they're women, they're people we hate, just jokingly. But like they probably won't be around any longer than Twitch can make money off of them. Eventually, like they're probably gonna have to make some kind of ruling. And I mentioned earlier about like ad revenue. If it starts to cut into ad revenue and sponsors pull out because 13-year-olds are seeing boobies, like that they're going to like make a ruling. But right now they're making quite a bit of money off of like tips and donations, I would assume.
Okay, I'm going to throw it over to Eris.
Hello. Yeah, I was really happy with this conversation. Like, surprising, it was. I was kind of expecting some of the typical arguments I hear about this, which is like virtue signaling liberal feminist takes about like, oh, it's just their body, that's it. Like you're just telling women what to do with their bodies, and it was cool. We had a way more nuanced discussion, so that was interesting. But hello, I am Aristocracy. The good kind of aristocracy, the one spelled with an E. My chat is my community is the only place where both lefties and righties and centrists join together to oppress the lower classes together. And I also run Calliopean Club, which is great intellectual Discord server. But you should watch my streams. I do mostly history streams and I do interviews. And my videos, particularly my history videos, where I talk about degenerate things like the history of cuckoldry and stuff. Are really, really funny. So you should search me on YouTube too. But yeah, thanks for having me, Dylan. And this has been really cool.
No problem. I'm gonna throw that over to American Nacho.
Hey, so I'm American Nacho. I stream and play video games, whatever. I want to touch on the last comment first, just to make sure. Like, I want to address the fact that everybody backed off the hot tub streaming content as soon as we allowed the youngest person on the platform, 13-year-olds, to be allowed to do hot tub streams. I think it's bad for advertisement, for revenue, for overall, like, providing free content to all the viewers. Like, it's bad for everybody because advertisers are not going to want to come here. They're not going to want to allow us to provide. It's going to be harder for us to provide like free content to everybody else. I really just wanted to shout out, to end this on a really wholesome note. My mom started sponsoring my channel. Okay, so I'm going to tell you guys where to go with that. I don't care if you follow me. My mom's a lefty, so if I lean right, you can say fuck Nacho. We're going to go follow his mom. Go follow my mom on Instagram. Her @ is Bringing Spring. Okay, she's doing a hashtag 365 days of art. Her website is bringingspring.com. If you use code Nacho25, you can get 25% all of your purchases, and I get a little slice of the pie too. Okay, but also a percentage of all the purchases go to Step to Hope, which is a local nonprofit organization that provides shelter to and education for domestic abuse victims. Okay. So please go do that. It's awesome. She's an amazing artist. Go check it out. Okay. Love you guys. Thanks for having me on.
Nice.
Your mother's an amazing woman. Throwing it over to CounterPoints.
Yeah, so no, love being here. Super fun. Dylan, if this is the last one, we're gonna have words in person. I mean, it'll probably be over beer, but it's okay. My name is Connor. I run a YouTube channel named CounterPoints, common spelling. Literally jump onto YouTube, type in CounterPoints. You can find me there. And then basically I do a whole bunch of stuff. I'm a Marine veteran of 4 years, person other than grunt, so POG or POG, if you will. Then also a law enforcement veteran of 4 years, 3 years on the road, 1 year in the schools. Right now I'm doing a whole bunch of different stuff. I'm reacting to Full Metal Jacket, breaking down all of the psychology and all of the tactical issues that go on inside Full Metal Jacket. Same thing with End of Watch, which is an excellent law enforcement movie. I'm also doing that for Warhammer 40,000, which is one of my passions. If you're wondering what I'm painting while I'm hanging out with you guys, I'm actually painting Warhammer 40,000 miniatures. I post those to my Twitter, which is ConnorPoints, CONORPOINTS, CONORPOINTS. I also post memes there. Identify as center right, but in general, just love yelling at people about politics on the internet. And that's me. So I had a beautiful conversation. You should also follow all these wonderful people and bully Dylan to keep the hippy dippy continuing.
Thin your paints. Thin your paints.
2 thin coats.
Throwing it over to CTV.
Yeah, so the conversation's been pretty good. I think that at the bottom of all of it is moderation and even back to the very first thing that we talked about with regard to censoring on Facebook, right? Like the conversation between publisher and platform, and how I kind of feel like that the best way for corporations to proceed moving forward would be to focus on their user interface, which would help with moderation and, et cetera. So that would just end up being better at the end of the day. As far as everything else is concerned, I am Critically Thinking Veteran. You can find me on Twitch under the same name. You can go to criticallythinkingveteran.com. You can also go over to our Discord, which is the Infinity Acre Wood, where we host Halo tournaments and a large community that involves a university, a chapel, a coliseum where we actually fight, and a myriad of other, wonderful people that occupy the space. If this is, in fact, the last hippy dippy, right, then it's only fair to say that it's been one hell of a ride, right? And I've enjoyed being here, a part of it, every single time that I have.
Wonderful. Okay. We're going to throw it over to Destiny now.
Hi, I'm Destiny. Twitch.tv/Destiny, YouTube.com/Destiny. It's been fun being here. I love you, Dylan. Good luck. That's all I got.
What do you mean good luck? Good luck at what?
Well, at the rest of your life, I guess. If you're leaving the hippy dippy, you're probably going to fade into obscurity as a streamer. You're not going to be doing this anymore for income.
Bully him harder. Bully him back into his job.
Look, if you want me to be bluntly honest, I love Hippy Dippy. I'm still gonna do championship. The thing is,
Mhm.
I just hate everyone involved. And what I mean by that is like the guests.
True, I understand. Do you want me to on my
You're
site?
gonna hate me, but
because I know you can't do it as easily.
Fuck you,
on Twitter.
buddy.
Do you want me to change your name right now to Mindwaves 2.0, or do you want to wait a little bit?
Don't. Oh, look,
Dylan,
look.
There
Dylan,
we
you
go.
wanna play
I
chill?
work on these long-term projects, and the worst thing I can ever get from somebody, happen more often from like, is a maybe, because then I'm in the position like, no, and yes, I know what to do. If I get a no, okay, I got to reroute, do this. Get a yes, okay, let's work, continue on the project. Maybe we're in this limbo where you're trying to kind of like make a show happen, but they just won't respond to you. And I've had to deal with that a lot recently. Certain things. And that's on top of last second cancellations, people last second saying, "Oh, I gotta leave early," and this
is
happening-
actually like if the scheduling is actually a problem for you, you just got to do the tried and true, my dude.
What?
Message Summit, just lie about your other guests. If you message me and say some shit like, "Hey, do you want to do Hippy Dippy on Friday?" Like Lauren Southern's going to be there. I'll say yes. You can probably also get some other really big figures to say yes. And then by the time everybody shows up, even if you're like, "Oh, Lauren Southern canceled," you're going to have other big figures that agree.
That
and
feels
they'll
like
say yes.
it'll end up like Firefest one day. Like everybody will cancel last second once I can't like deliver on anything, and then I'm the one stuck with the ticket, right?
It's okay. I'll be here for
It's
you
your
always.
show.
bro.
You can lie to
Yeah,
everyone.
and
you
then you
too,
have to
son.
get people like me.
Wonderful. I'll be
Nah,
like, it's
Shave
not
Dog
Joe.
ass, you were excellent.
Yeah, that's like
Just
I forgot
don't forget.
I
look,
forgot
just
the
don't-
protest in my outro. Everyone protest, okay? Chat, rise up, dude. This is a communist
forgot
chat.
to shill
Everyone
for
rise up and
myself.
demand that we continue the Hippy Dippy podcast, okay? I'll
What?
show up every fucking Friday, Dylan, all right?
Same.
I
Right.
I understand that is that very just very stressful because I had to deal with all this happening at the same time that I almost go into like septic shock, right? And I have to go to the hospital at the same time with finals, and I'm dealing with all of that. And as that's happening, people are like, "Damn, I'm so sorry that you're going through like a septic shock and you're with all this going on in your life." Anyway, I gotta cancel. You have a nice day. Like that's the fucking type of shit of messages I'm getting, right? Like that type of just cold-blooded. I don't care. It's like the type of stuff that's like,
Yeah, but
okay,
Dylan,
and,
this
like,
is
why do
where I
even
want to.
bother?
I want to point you to a fact, though, right? Let me tell you the one thing that I know for a fact you didn't think this week. There was never a doubt in your mind after I told you that I was going to be there, whether or not I was going to be there.
Mm-hmm.
Bro,
You just got to make sure
Yeah,
you
and hey,
remember the
inviting me
people
guaranteed
can
that
you just
tell
see
you
Mike from
talk.
PA? I'm sorry. Okay, I'm not.
Yeah.
Okay.
And hey,
Mike
and
from
he
PA can't even
made
stay
you
on without quitting, right? Like
he
right in
made
the
you
middle
a
of it, too.
fucking leash. He made you a fucking leash, friend.
He did make
Yeah.
me a leash. Yeah.
Yeah.
Dog.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm gonna
Hey,
say,
Destiny. Destiny. Unironically, let's have a conversation about ASMR sometime. I have a feeling we could have a fucking awesome conversation.
You know what? I bet we
There
could
would
have a
be some
great
peace.
conversation. That's possible, but I still fucking hate you as a human being. so-
Oh, I know you do. Oh, trust me, everyone in the world knows that, Destiny. You've made that abundantly clear.
All right, just making sure.
Okay.